Hello and welcome back to the GVP Game of the Year episode. This is going to be part one. I'm your host, the Adam Hartcaster, and I'm joined by a good friend of mine making his third appearance on the
Yeah.
podcast. Dante, welcome back. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me again. This is exciting. I look forward to this every time we get to do it. So
It's
I'm
becoming a bit
jazzed.
of a tradition because the first time you were
Yeah.
on, we did like a halfway through the year Game of the Year thing, Game
Yep.
of the Year so far, and then you joined me at the end of 2020, and yeah, we talked about our Game of the Year then. We did our top 10 list, a little collective list. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good tradition, and I hope to have you on more frequently too, just for like game
Yeah.
reviews and stuff. Let's do more of it because it's been a lot of fun so far.
I always love it, and you know very well I do more playing video games than probably anything else in my life, which
Yeah.
maybe needs some adjustment, but no, it's I always will have opinions for you. So yeah, happy to be on whenever you want me.
Well, yeah, well, I'm glad I can, bring this podcast because maybe that like helps you justify like playing all these
Right.
games. Like, oh, I'm doing it for content. I'm doing it for
Yeah,
content.
exactly. The
Okay, so
escapism
this
can't be it forever.
Yeah. So we're gonna switch up the format a bit this year. We're gonna do this in two parts. This is part one, and in part one we're gonna talk quickly about our list from last year, just kind of how does it sit with you now that we're a year later. We're gonna talk about the games that we didn't play that we would have liked to, and then the main part of this part one is gonna be the categories. So this is new from last year. We're gonna go through best visuals, best music, best levels, and best characters. Those four categories, and we're just gonna throw out a shit ton of nominees, and then we'll dwindle it down to a top five list, not ranked, just like a top five. Like here are the five best levels of the year, as per Dylan and Dante. And so that's the point of part one. And then in part two is going to be our just top 10 lists, our individual lists, and then our kind of collective list. And yeah, I think the purpose of the categories for me is to take away this because we talked about honorable mentions for a long time in our
Mhm.
in our previous episode, which is fine. But I think this will be a way that we can kind of talk about what would be honorable mentions in these categories instead. And if you have any honorable mentions when we do get into the list for part two, we can go through those quickly as well. But
Right.
let's hop right into it. So I'm going to if also I'm doing video this time. So for anyone listening on Spotify or whatever you listen to, if you want to hop over to YouTube, I'm gonna have these lists like on screen so you can see them as we go through them, which might help keep track of everything because it's gonna be a lot. So let's start with our list from last year. So we made
Right.
top 10 lists, and I have those up here, and we're just gonna go through them quickly and see like how do we sit with them 1 year later. So let's go through your list first. At number 10 was Doom Eternal, 9 Ori and the Will of the Wisps, 8 Final Fantasy VII Remake, 7 Genshin Impact, 6 Neo 2, 5 Hades, 4 Persona 5 Royal, 3 Demon Souls, 2 Cyberpunk 2077, and 1 Half-Life Alyx. Dante, how are you feeling about that list now that
It's
we are
wrong.
about a calendar year later?
It's wrong. There's some serious
Really?
recency bias in that one. I think right before we
Okay.
recorded last year, I had just beaten Cyberpunk, and I was like one of the lucky few who didn't have any like serious bugs, and I was able to
Yeah.
complete the game without my computer just like crapping itself. So I felt like lucky, and I really enjoyed Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk needs to probably be at 10, and then
Ooh, really?
everything else should.
That much of a
Yeah.
jump, hey?
Yeah, I
That's
just like
crazy.
looking back at the games that I have played since, like I have returned to a lot of these games. Like Hades being at 5 is crazy. That should be way higher.
Yeah.
Like Persona 5 Royal, I also adore and have played so much of, but like it should be a little lower because it's a like it's strong additional content, but maybe not much more than that.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I think I could do a full on shuffle of this, but we're
And
not going to go that far.
we won't go that far.
I
Is
can't
there anything
spend.
you hadn't played last year that you have since played that would make it on the list?
Oh,
I know it's off the top of your head, but
this year. Oh,
maybe like
well,
Spelunky 2, for example. I don't know if you've
what
played
if
that
I what
yet.
if I didn't play Spelunky 2 still?
Well, I still haven't played Hades, so we're okay
Okay,
there.
there we go. We're even. The scales are aligned. I'd say the big one for me, and it's the only reason that I feel strongly at the moment because I think it's going to turn drastically. I started playing. I started playing last night, literally Death Stranding director's cut.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
Okay.
probably also would have enjoyed Death Stranding a little bit more than I
Right.
realized. That game's
Well, Death
buck
Stranding
wild.
was 2019.
Oh, it is 2019. Okay, so the
Yeah.
director's cut was skipped a year then. So
Yeah.
then no, not really. Death Stranding was the only one that felt like glaring to me, and it was for the year before anyway.
Yeah, I'm
So
curious to hear what you think about that game when you've played more of it, because that was for me tied for
divisive.
number one in 2019. It was like one or two.
Oh,
I did give it number two in my video, but I could make a
wow.
case for number one. I love that game, so I'm curious
Okay,
to hear what you think of it.
super divisive. I'm a big Hideo Kojima fan,
Yeah,
so well,
and I've never played
it's
a Kojima game before. That was my first one, and I loved it. So it
oh,
really
you
stuck with me.
have a wealth of
I know.
incredible weird video
That's
games to
high
go
on the
through.
backlog for me. Is I gotta
Yeah,
go through. I saw there was like a PlayStation sale, and like I mean I don't know if I should start with Metal Gear Solid 5, but it was like
no,
$5. I'm like, oh, I should
no,
get this.
no.
No, don't.
Start from the first one, work your way up, earn it, earn it.
Okay, I'll
There's
earn
a
it.
lot of lore to dig into.
I'll earn it.
But yeah, I guess Spelunky 2 is okay. Looking at your list,
Yeah.
Spelunky 2 and Ghost of Tsushima are probably my biggest, like, man, those are definitely on my lists of shame now.
Mm.
I need to get into those, especially with the PS5 like remaster of
Yeah.
Ghosts.
Yeah.
Or upgrade, I guess, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably it.
Okay.
It's probably the only two I missed from last year that I was like, I need to get into those.
Yeah, let's go through my list then. So number 10 for me was Carto, 9 Coffee Talk, 8 Dunk Lords, 7 Cyberpunk 2077, 6 Call of Duty Warzone, 5 Disc Room, 4 Crosscode, 3 Animal Crossing New Horizons, 2 Ghost of Tsushima, and 1 Spelunky 2. So yeah, I mean this was interesting last year where we didn't have any games. Well, I guess Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was our one game in common. And that's why I'm excited for this year, because I feel like we played a lot more of the same games this year. So maybe we can have more in-depth conversations on the same games, and maybe our collective list will actually be a bit more in contention this year. We'll see.
We'll see.
But looking at my list,
I have some weird ones that you're not expecting.
In terms of my list from last year, I feel pretty good about it. I think the only game I've played since is Dirt 5. I really like that's like the one racing game that I just love. And so I would maybe put that in like 10 or something. Like it would just maybe squeak on, but I'm not too passionate about it. And then I think the main thing for me is, well, one, Crosscode technically is not a 2020 game, but it released on Switch in 2020, and I loved it so much that I kind of I bent the rules a bit. But like looking back on it, it's like I probably should kick it back to like 2018, I think, when it actually came out.
Right.
And then I think my biggest takeaway is that Spelunky 2 is as well my most played game this year. Also, we're recording in January. This is releasing in January, obviously, but when I say this year, I mean 2021. Like, let's put that, because I'll probably say that a million times. But yeah, Spelunky 2 was definitely my most played game this year. I think I was talking about in our episode how I was like striving for this really difficult task, and I grinded all of January, playing for hours every day, late into the night. I eventually did it at the very end of January. I accomplished
success.
Spelunky 799. It was probably the best gaming achievement, like the best feeling I've ever had for a gaming achievement in my whole life.
When you earn those, man.
I was pumped on adrenaline. I was just walking around my apartment. It was like 2 a.m. because this run took like 3 hours. But I was just like pumped on adrenaline, just walking, pacing around my apartment, just like cheering for myself. I've never had a gaming feeling that good. So yes, and then I kind of got like stuck back in Spelunky in the summer. I was like, oh, I love this game again. But yeah, it's ascended to like top 5 all time for me. I love Spelunky 2, so I'm definitely happy with it being number 1 there. And yeah, once again, my most played game of 2021. Even though there's a ton of amazing games we're about to talk about, that was the one that whenever I just wanted to play a game. I'm playing Spelunky. That was what you
went for. Yeah. Man, it's climbing my list of shame as you speak. I'm like, geez, I can't believe I have ignored it for so long. But I've had a few roguelites that have taken my attention.
Spelunky definitely speaks to me on like a personal level more than most people. So I don't know if it would have the same effect for you, and I've literally put like 400 hours into it in like a year.
Gosh.
So I mean, it would take a while before you maybe see the game in the way I see it. I'm like,
right.
Crazy.
You're watching. You're seeing the code at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm seeing the code, but I love that game so much. So yeah, those were our lists from last year. I think pretty solid list. Yeah, Cyberpunk at 2, pretty high. I'm happy leaving mine at 7. Like that's a good place for me.
It needs to be lower for
because
sure.
I did like the game a lot. Once again, I played on PS4 and I still liked it a lot. So there you go.
That's wild.
All right, next, let's talk about just quickly what are the games from this year that we didn't end up getting the time for, or you know, it could be time. It could just be like didn't quite maybe like for me, I didn't have one of the systems to play one of these games.
Right.
But yeah, what are the games for you that you think maybe would have made it on your list or categories or games that you just felt like or were shouting out as like, oh, I probably would have liked this game had I had the time or money or whatever it was to play it.
Yeah, I've got a few. I have 5 games that like I think actually could have probably made it onto my list, my top 10
Mm-hmm.
list, if I had just given them the opportunity or they had. I'm one of those people that if I didn't play originals of the games, I need to play through all of them leading up
Yeah.
to it. So
Yeah.
there's quite a few from that perspective. But yeah,
Okay.
I'll just rattle them off real fast. So the 5 games that I think definitely deserved my time: a game called Wildermyth, which is actually a game I
Mm-hmm.
recommended to you earlier in the
You
year.
did. Yeah.
Just really, really, really cool, almost like tabletop tactics style game. Really, really interesting, like cardboard cutout style art. And apparently one of the better examples of emergent storytelling in
Mm-hmm.
video games. I've been hearing lots of recommendations for that
I
game. It just seems like something you got to invest some time into.
I don't know. Because I did end up picking it up off your recommendation.
Nice.
I played through it, and it is very much structured like D&D. And even on the main menu, it's like there's like 5 or so campaigns that you can pick from. And I
Right.
played like the first one, what it's like the introductory campaign. And in all, I think it took me 5 or 6 hours to get through that one
Oh, that's not bad.
campaign. And then I'm sure there's other ones that are shorter, other ones that are longer. And then after I beat one, like I didn't feel like I knew to immediately keep
Hey.
going to feel completion for the game. It's a game that I'll come back to and play the other campaigns when I want to
Right.
get that scratch that itch again. But I think it is pretty easy one to jump into and just play. And I love the game as well. I'll talk about it this episode and next episode as well.
Hey, cool. Yeah, that's actually so that makes me a little more less stressed about jumping into it because I thought it was
Yeah.
going to be something that took me hours and hours and hours. But like, if it's a nice little like snack, then that's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So next is Scarlet Nexus. I don't know if you're
Ooh.
familiar with this. This is a Bandai Namco, Bamco game. This didn't catch my attention initially because I did not like Code Vein, which was the last Bandai Namco game that came out with this aesthetic, but I think this is a lot cooler. It is essentially Devil May Cry meets like Psyops. If you're familiar with that game,
No, I'm not.
that's a game. That's a throwback. That's like a game for the original Xbox, but or maybe the Xbox 360, but. You have telekinetic powers, and that's part of it. Is
Okay.
you're like throwing objects at the enemies and stuff like that. And I played a good like hour of it, and I was like, "This is super cool! Like, I cannot wait to play more of this." But I just never got back to it. There's so much to
Yeah.
play this year. Forza 5, just gorgeous. It's on Game Pass.
So have you not
Everybody,
played that at all? You haven't.
I played once again like an hour of it. Just
Yeah.
like
Okay.
other things took my attention this year. So Forza 5 looks amazing and is like really high on my list of things I need to dig some time into.
Mm-hmm.
Psychonauts 2, this is what I was getting at
Yeah.
in the beginning. I was like, man, Psychonauts 2 seems genius, and I never played Psychonauts 1. So I want to play Psychonauts 1 before I jump into
Yeah.
2.
I'm
I
in the
think they
same
both
boat on
deserve my
that one.
time.
That was my biggest, maybe my biggest regret of the year is not making time for because I don't think they announced the release date for Psychonauts 2 like super early on in the year. So I guess I didn't
Yeah,
know when I should be prepared to play it. But yeah,
right.
I didn't end up spending the time with the first one to beat or to even play that yet. So
Yeah,
that's definitely I regret not playing those two because they just seem so cool. They just seem like the
yeah.
games for me for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like humor, art style, it's so weird. I love just like things that are just inherently strange. So like I
Yeah.
think that would be I think I'll love it once I get to it. And then the last game for me is The Forgotten City.
Mm.
The Forgotten City is fits within this year super well because it's a time loop game and there's
Yeah.
been you guys will realize very quickly. I think there's quite a few loop games on Dylan and
Many. Yeah.
I's
Yeah.
top 10s this year. And I feel like this is the only one that I missed. So the Forgotten City is a mod of Skyrim.
Skyrim. Yeah.
Yeah, where this they took this mod and essentially extrapolated it out into its own game, and it apparently has a really really cool it's less combat focused and more story focused. So it's a lot of like conversation trees and stuff like that, like you'd expect from an Elder Scrolls game, but then it's built in with this really crazy time loop mechanic that I want to learn more about, and I want to get to the bottom of that. So
Yeah,
those
I think that
are
one's on Game Pass as well. So
it is on Game Pass as well.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, 1, 2, all of these games but Wildermyth are on Game Pass.
Right. Well, that's
Yeah.
good then. You can
Yeah.
easily hop in, check them out.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I hope by whenever we do this next time, I can be like, I knocked all of those off, which
Nice.
probably won't happen, but I want to.
Yeah. I don't so Forgotten City, what I haven't played it, and I don't think it was quite on my list. Like it seems cool. I don't know if I'm like burnt out on time loops because
Right.
I don't think that's like a genre of game that you'd get burnt out on because like each one of them is so different in terms of
Mhm.
gameplay. It's not quite on my list. Like maybe someday I'll play it, but I don't feel regret for not playing that one.
Right.
The time loop game, however, that I'm really bummed that I didn't get to play is Returnal. I don't have a PS5, but that's like the one PS5 game that like Demon's Souls I'd like to play as well, but that's like the
Right.
one PS5 game that I am quite bummed I don't have the system to play. Like Ratchet and Clank came out this year, but I don't know, it doesn't really I don't know if I would have picked it up even if I did have the console,
Fair.
but Returnal, yeah, Returnal, I really wish I could have played that one. It seems like it's my kind of game. And when I do get my PS5 someday, I think that'll be when I come home from the store, I'll have my PS5 and a copy of Returnal in my hand. Like I really want to play that
think,
one.
I think it's a worthy early cop for sure. Like,
Yeah.
definitely a good one to pick up first, if not close to first.
Right. Cool. So I'll do that. I'll do that someday. I'll come back and report my thoughts.
Please do. Yeah, you'll learn soon, but I think it's worth it.
Nice. I'm excited to hear you talking about it more. And then yeah, Psychonauts. Obviously, the other indie game, Chicory, a colorful tale, seems really cool. I didn't end up making time for it. It just was a bit lower on my priority list than some of the other games I kind of grinded out in the last couple months here. But it seems really cool, really unique, and a game that I definitely want to go back and play. You any interest in that one for yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Like if this list could have been longer, I would have. Well, like it could have, but I felt like I very quickly will just start talking about a dozen games I didn't even touch this year.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to keep away from that.
Yeah.
Chicory, Omori, another game with like a very similar
Right.
art style, that like black and white kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, except I think Chicory is
Oh,
adding more
like
color to
coloring
the
stuff in.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both look so up my alley. Like Chicory is essentially like a Zelda like, right? Like I
Yeah,
love
I think
that.
so.
I love that kind of stuff. So no, it's installed on my computer.
Nice.
Just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, we'll talk about it someday then.
Absolutely.
And then the two games that I have played some of, but feel like I needed to play more of. One was It Takes Two, which ended up taking Game of the Year at the Game
Another
Awards, which is
It's another one. Like I can't believe I didn't think of that either. Like I said, this list could be a dozen long.
Yeah, I know it could be. This one I've played like I think 3 hours of it, and I believe me, in the last couple weeks I would have played through the rest of it, but it is a co-op game, and the friend I was playing with we just couldn't line up a time to play it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, but it's a game. Even after this, like I'm still motivated to go finish it, just because I want to see what else is in there. But even in like those 2 to 3 hours, in like what is 2 to 3 levels, an insane amount of creativity. And I will talk about it in some of the categories, I think, because it is a pretty awesome game, and one that I think I'm pretty confident would have made on my top 10 if I had, even if I don't even think I needed to have beaten it, but maybe just a couple more levels to push it up a couple slots on the list.
For sure.
And then the other one, which if you're watching on YouTube, is currently our background, is Halo Infinite. Obviously, I've played some multiplayer. Me and Dante played some multiplayer together. And then the campaign kind of came out at an awkward time for me. I've been away from home for a couple weeks, didn't have my Xbox, so I haven't played it at all. And then, in that time, I was also thinking, I was like, man, I feel like my greatest memories with Halo campaigns have always been the co-op. So I think I might actually just wait until the co-op's in there. So I'm not really regretting not playing the campaign yet, because I think I do want to wait until co-op's in there and play it with a friend. Or I don't know if it's up to 4 people, but play it with some friends.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess they I don't know if they've really done the map for that too much. It's just like next year you're gonna get co-op, and it's just like, okay.
I know it's too bad. I think I look back at like Halo 3 is one of my favorite games of all the time, and I think part of the reason that's like it's got this amazing campaign that you can play with your friends. It's got all this multiplayer stuff. It's got Forge. Like it just had all this stuff, and it's almost like you didn't really think about what we had at the time. Like so it must be so hard to ship a game with that many features that are like that seem like full games in and of themselves. So I mean, it's weird the way they release like multiplayer and then like a month later single player campaign, and then they're gonna do Forge and then co-op. It's weird. Maybe they should have waited longer. I don't know, but I mean, I've at least had a good amount of fun with the multiplayer so far. So
yeah. I can. I don't want to talk about it too much, just because I have a lot of love for the Halo that came out this year. And I do agree though. Yeah, I played the campaign all the way through. I do agree though. Like I feel like we were really spoiled. I guess games have changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
games don't ship finished ever anymore. So it's
Yeah.
like not necessarily a surprise, but I think what they gave us is pretty damn good.
True. True. Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of fun with the multiplayer. I haven't even really played that much multiplayer because once again I was
Right.
away from home for a
Right.
couple weeks, so I haven't really played a whole lot of it. So it's not I haven't played enough for it to crack my top 10. But I really have enjoyed it. It's kind of like I want to say back to form. I never even played Halo 5, so I guess,
Yeah.
but I didn't even really like Halo 4 that much. But a
Fair.
series I'm very fond of, and I'm excited to play the campaign when it's in there. And I can't wait until Forge is in there too, and just see some of the mini games, because that's one of my favorite part of Halos too. Is just
Yeah.
like these random games that people make that you can play with like your friends or just griffball and things like that.
Like, yeah, I was
I'm
gonna say you
excited for that
literally
stuff.
play soccer with hammers. Like,
Yeah.
it's too fun.
It's
So.
like the original Rocket League.
Soon, hopefully soon.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's pretty much it for me. Like, yeah, there is other games for sure that came out, but I think I really did a good job this year of playing the games that I felt like I really wanted to, and was
Likewise.
capable of. So yeah, let's shoot to a very quick ad break, and then we will come back and get into the categories. And we're back. We're gonna talk about these 4 categories I mentioned at the top: best visuals, best music, best levels, and characters. Dante, do you have a one that you want to start with here? I was thinking like maybe levels and characters are a bit more spoilery potentially, so maybe those could be the last 2.
Yes, I agree. Because I definitely want to get into a little bit of conversation around specifically the levels and characters. I have a few where I'm gonna like. There's gonna be some spoilers for sure.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start with visuals then. That's like, anyone who watches a trailer could like potentially add a game into this category. So
right.
I feel like that's a pretty good like non-spoilery one.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so the way we're going to do this is we're just going to throw out as many nominees as we humanly want to, possibly can, I guess. And then we'll dwindle it down to a top 5 list later. But yeah, let's go back and forth. What is a game you want to throw in here and nominate for best visuals?
I'm gonna throw out one that I don't think will make a top 5, but I loved it. It's one of my nominees, but it's not the one that I'm gonna fight for necessarily, and that's Neo: The World Ends with You. I am a giant The World Ends with You fan. It's a amazing game for the DS. This was a sequel that came out this year.
Yeah,
super pop arty, kind of like really, really bright, like graffiti style visuals almost. Kind of like reminds me of a mix between like a Tetsuya Nomura thing. So like any of those like Final Fantasies with ridiculous hair and zippers, right?
Yeah.
And that mixed with something like a Jet Set Radio or something like that. So really cool aesthetic. Really cool aesthetic.
Is there a colon after Neo? That was a big guess on my part.
Yes. Yeah, you nailed it.
Amazing. I'm gonna throw out a game that I didn't love, but I think visually was cool, and that is 12 Minutes.
Good one. That is a good one.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
I don't love that game either.
Yeah, we talked about this last year. We talked when we did like a quick most anticipated games, and I think 12 Minutes was in there for both of us. And I don't think either of us really ended up liking the game that much.
No. Man, I can really just talk about that game for a little bit. That game made some choices.
Yeah.
Cool ideas. Really, really beautiful. Not a great story.
Yeah. Yeah. I got stuck at some point, and I was like, I don't think this is worth me going ahead with, and so I just dipped out before I even got to like the weird twist. But I've heard about some of the weird twists.
I was loving it until then. I was loving it until the weird twist where I was like, wow, I can't be a part of this. I can't get down. I'm not going down the road you're going down.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like that's not going to make it onto our lists in any way. But I think, I mean, there's a lot of isometric games and like zoomed out kind of games, but there isn't a lot of games that are just directly top down in the way that 12 Minutes is. And I think for a game that is so small and like just literally the size of an apartment, is pretty cool. Like I debated putting the apartment as like one of my best levels. I think I'll just shout it out here as in best visuals, but I think the game does have a really unique look to it, and yeah, I mean, it's not like its art style is anything special either, or like the fidelity of it or anything like that. But it really worked for me in terms of like just bringing me in. I like the look of it.
No, it does a good job of like giving you a nice like diorama to work within, and
Mm-hmm.
like it gives you the moodiness, like that Kubrick style thing that they were going
Yeah,
for a little bit. Like I think it definitely has a cool aesthetic for sure.
cool. Why don't you give us another
All
one
right,
here?
next up, all right, we're getting into some bangers. These are all incredible. I'll start with one that's personal to me. You're gonna throw out one of these for sure. Guilty Gear Strive.
Ooh,
Um, I'm a huge Guilty Gear fan. I've been a Guilty Gear fan since the original PlayStation. I always think they just do such. Look at you.
they have like the
You
weird
nailed
spelling
this.
of it, right?
Yeah, I know you. I didn't even write it that way. That's so good. Um, so if for anybody listening on audio, he put some hyphens around Strive to really like nail the
Yeah.
visual of the way that they write it out. Anyway, it just does such a good job of being like this over the top anime thing. It is beautiful. This like pseudo 2D 3D art style. Like they got a lot of love for when they switched to this with Guilty Gear Xrd, which is also incredible. This just takes it to the next level. It is the most beautiful fighting game. Like
Yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah.
I'm not. I'm a huge Super Smash Brothers Melee fan. Obviously, go to tournaments
Mm,
and I'm
yep.
a diehard fan. And traditional fighting games just have never done it for me. But Guilty Gear has always been the one that, if there were one that I was going to get invested in, it would be Guilty Gear. And I think Strive, yeah, as well. It's like 2D and then like the 3D moments of it, like that's really
Hmm.
cool. The character designs are awesome. And I've as a melee, I've watched a lot of melee players checking out Guilty Gear as well. So I've watched a lot
Oh,
of streams of the game, and that's
yeah.
kind of how I get my enjoyment out of it. And I think it is just an amazing game. And I wish I was more into 2D fighters because I'd like
I'm
to
here
get into
for you.
Guilty Gear, but I don't know. Maybe I should jump in and try it out.
Hey,
But at least visually, man, this game's great for sure.
you have a training partner. I will put you through your
Okay.
paces in Guilty Gear for sure.
Okay. Well, who's your character? Do you have a main? Who do you main?
I like Ramlethal a lot. She's this
Ooh,
girl
I don't know.
that
I don't
has
know
these
that character.
two gigantic swords. She has these like minions that are these orbs with gigantic teeth that hold the swords, and she's almost like controlling them through telekinesis.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. She's just
I'm
like
trying to
good
look
mid
up this
range.
character.
RAM space. It's Ram
Oh, this
Lethal.
character. Okay, yeah, this
Yeah,
character's cool. Yeah.
I love her. Her and Chip. Chip's the president of
President.
of Japan. I'm pretty sure.
Whoa. Way to go,
And he's
Chip.
also a ninja. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just super anime, and it's dumb as hell, and also incredible for all of those same reasons.
I like the character that just has a giant anchor. Or I guess it's just a
Oh
regular
yeah,
size anchor,
May.
but yeah, I
May.
love
She
the
sends out
anchor.
dolphins. She's terrifying. She's
And
so
she's just
scary
like
to
a
play
giant
against.
orange hoodie. I love that character
Very
design.
threatening character, but would bring a lot of joy during the fight, which is even
Mm-hmm.
makes it even scarier.
Yeah. Okay, what is the next one I want to shout out here? I'm gonna go with Hitman 3. I'm gonna throw Hitman 3 on here.
Ooh.
Have you played Hitman 3? I'm curious.
Not yet. That needs to be on my list as well. I can't believe
Okay.
because I love Hitman 1 and I loved Hitman 2. And just like by the time Hitman 3 came out, I was like, you'll be there
Yeah.
for me when I need you.
Yeah. Well,
I know
spoiler,
what
we're
I'm
gonna
getting
talk about
into there.
Hitman a lot in these
Okay.
2 episodes. I love Hitman.
I know.
Yeah, and I think Hitman 3 really I mean it makes sense. It's a sequel, but it really elevated just the graphical fidelity of
Cool.
everything. Like just in the first level, which is in like this you're at the top of a skyscraper in Dubai, and the way the sun comes in is really beautiful. Here I actually have another background here. This is another level,
Oh,
Mendoza,
snap.
which takes place in Argentina, which is super unique. Like how many games have Argentina as a
Right.
primary place? But yeah, just these beautiful mountains in the background. I literally went and sat down at a bench and just like looked out at the sunset. Like I just would leave it on my TV in the background because of how beautiful it is.
That's
And then
that's
yeah,
a good sign.
yeah,
That's always a good sign. It's like, all right, I found my screensaver.
yeah. There's another level where you're in China and it's like it's nighttime and it's raining and there's kind of these neon signs and it's just beautiful. Another level where you're kind of in this underground club in Germany. It's like a manor in England. All very beautiful levels.
Yeah.
And they really stepped up in terms of like just the quality of the visuals. Like because I also played Hitman 1 for the first time this year. All those levels. And yeah, just like the amount, just like the little details and just the quality of every little asset has just, I don't know, they've just gotten so good at making these games. And I think they announced that they're making DLC next year. So you can bet that I'll probably talk about more Hitman levels next year
Yeah,
in our top tens in some ways. But I love the visuals of this game. I think they really stepped it up, and especially with some unique locations as well. Like just a beautiful game.
nice. Man, I'm excited to get into that for sure.
Yeah, you got to check
Um,
out Hitman.
yeah,
That's yeah, you got it.
it's definitely. I can't believe it didn't make it on that list of games I would like to play. It was just it was long. It was long. It
I
was
mean, it
just
came
the
out in
first ones that came
January,
to
right?
my
I feel
head.
like a lot of people
Yeah,
just
that's true.
unfortunately kind of forgot about it, and
I did.
even myself, like spoiler, I put Hitman in best music as well, and then I was thinking about it today. I'm like, I don't really remember the music. Like it's been so long that I can't even really recall the themes. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a long time, and one I haven't even revisited. Like I played a ton of it in January and February, and I haven't gone back to it, but it still stands really strongly in
a
my mind.
highlight.
So yeah,
Nice. Awesome. So the next one for me is one that I figured we'd both shout out. Deathloop.
yeah,
I think
definitely.
Deathloop has a phenomenal aesthetic. That like 70s sci-fi thing that they're going for, they
Hmm.
just nail. It is like equal parts James Bond and I don't know what else after that. Like it has
Yeah.
like this thing that is so personal to it that is just so interesting. So like the just looking at the start screen is a
Hmm.
joy in that game, especially because they change it each time you play. Like they're like um, the two main characters are coming at each other
Yeah.
very like they're ready to get at each other, and it's like
Hmm.
different in every single screen, which is just yeah. There it is. There it is.
There's the
There's just
Deathloop colors.
yeah. It's just man. Those the visual they went for. They just absolutely perfected. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain how good it is unless you like see it in action for real. But like
Yeah.
really nailed the 70s.
Yeah, no, I think Arcane has always. I mean, Dishonored obviously stands out very strongly as having this. I have a Dishonored art book right behind me. Isn't that funny?
Right.
But yeah, like they just have such a unique style with just like even their character designs and like the
Absolutely.
even just like the costumes that the characters wear are really well
Yeah.
thought out. I like the different areas. Like Carl's Bay is kind of this like defunct bay area that doesn't really have much in the way. Like in the morning it seems like a really regular place, and then at night there's
Hmm.
kind of like this house of horrors going on.
Yep.
And then Updom, I like that there's just massive like red streaks painted across the building walls. And then even like the animated sequences, which this background kind of alludes to, like those animated sequences that I feel like everyone was gawking about when the trailers were coming out, and those are really cool in the game too. And it's like when you discover something crucial to the main loop,
Yep.
and then you kind of get this animated recap of what you just discovered. Like those sequences are really cool as well.
Yeah. It does so many different things to really sell its art style, and they all come together super cohesively. It just man, just even the like powers, like
Yeah.
the slab that's on your arm and the different effects that happen when you use the slab is
Hmm.
just like such a cool moment every single time you
Yeah.
use it. It never gets old ever. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, stunning game.
Even like, oh man, the 4-pounder, like it's just a pistol, but I love the what they did
Yeah.
for that
Oh, yeah. The
pistol.
gun, all of the guns look incredible and very specific to Deathloop. I don't feel like I've seen guns like that in anything else. Like, the 4-pounder is a great example of that. All of the like the pneumatic weapons that are in that like
Yeah.
you literally watch a dial charge up, see, make sure that you're getting enough pressure. Like,
Yeah.
there's just it pulls from so many different styles while making it feel like it is 100% its own at the
Hmm.
same time. It does such a great job.
Yeah. Um, Beautiful game. You mentioned this, and even though you've only played an hour of it, I think you'd still put it on here. But Forza Horizon 5.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, I mean this game, it's not a fantasy world. This is just it's just like landscapes of Mexico.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean just the visual quality is insane. Like there's not a game that just pixel for pixel looks better than Forza Horizon, even if the art style is like there
Right.
isn't really an art style. It's just like what life looks like, and it's sometimes watching playing them, like it just feels like I'm watching a movie or something.
Yeah.
When you like splash through the water and then like the effects hit the screen and whatnot. The different zones, like the going from jungle to these kind of volcanic like mountains, and then the desert sands,
The
like
desert. Yeah. I was
really
gonna say driving through
really
the sand
really
is so
great
cool.
looking game. Yeah.
Cars look damn good. Those are some good
Mhm.
looking cars. I like it gets me to the point where like almost, and I get it, but man, I wish there wasn't the licensing on those, because as fun as it is to look at them, I would also really like to destroy them. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I feel
Yeah.
like with it being so gorgeous, I'm like, man, these would be really, really, like, I just think back to my burnout days, and like, I
Mhm.
would love to wreck these things as well. But
It's the
just
best looking a Halo Warthog has ever looked, as you can drive that
exactly
around.
right.
So,
Yeah, they need to just literally lift that asset and put it back into Halo at
yeah.
this point. That's
Yeah.
so good.
I will say you mentioned that this was kind of on your pile of shame of like not playing more of it, and
Yeah.
I don't think you need to feel that way. I think this game has been like really overrated in terms of
Oh
how
wow.
good it is. Like it's beautiful, and I had fun for a couple hours, but I think naturally a game where you're driving really fast cars, like you kind of check out most of the map like in not that long compared to other
Right.
open world games. And then for me, like the racing, I guess I've been playing so much Dirt 5 lately too that I'm just like I'd rather kind of play Dirt 5 if I'm going to play a racing game in terms of just the mechanics. So
Hmm.
I don't think you need to feel too bad, but obviously a lot of people, some people were like salty that this wasn't like in the Game of the Year nominations at the Game Awards, and I was
Yeah.
kind of like, you guys are crazy. Like this, I think this is recency bias. Like I think it's a
Oh
solid
word.
game. It's fun enough, but I don't know. It's not Game of the
Did you
Year
play the other
contender, and
Horizons? Did you get into the other ones?
I
Okay,
haven't.
so that was
No.
that was what I heard a lot of people saying, was just like, man, Horizon 5 is good if you haven't played a Horizon game. But like if you played 4, just more 4, but like
Right.
prettier and in a different setting. I will say, and this might be something to get like pull away from the aesthetic, maybe not the visuals, but the aesthetic for me in this game is the actual event that is happening, the Horizon event
Mm-hmm.
is corny and really cheesy and like hard to I cannot listen to the people talking about it. Like it feels like um I'm surprised the people who are hosting the event, like the town or like wherever they are in Mexico, is like cool with them clearly
I
just
know.
totally destroying
It's
this
very
this
strange.
environment.
Yeah.
Like
It's very
I have
strange.
a hard time like removing myself from the fact that I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's on the up and up at all. What's
Mm-hmm.
going on here? Yeah, it feels like a racing game had a baby with Coachella in a
Right.
way that I'm like,
No,
all
that's
right,
fair. That's
part
a
of
good.
this is
Yeah.
not the energy I'm necessarily
Yeah.
looking for. And can come off as a little over the top for me. But the driving and the settings and the cars
Yeah.
all look
Yeah, I
incredible.
mean, it's not gonna make it on my top 10 list, obviously, but definitely very beautiful game. And yeah, I think this is the team making the next Fable, and I'm really, I mean, that's
Oh
obviously gonna
yeah,
be a very beautiful game. I can't wait to look at it. I hope mechanically it's good because it's hard to gauge from a open world
a
racing
racing
game like
game.
how they're gonna do with Fable.
Yeah,
But I'm actually really excited to see what they come up with because I mean, look at like the Killzone team went over and made Horizon, and that's like these teams are very
incredible.
talented. They have
Yeah.
hundreds of people on their squad and now. I mean, Microsoft's backing as well. Like, I feel like Fable is going to be pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited for that one.
Microsoft can't let Fable come out and it flop, right?
Yeah, I
They've
think
been working on it for
I think
so
they need that
long.
win. Yeah.
So, and I do have faith in this developer. So I see it turning out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine. Who
Why
knows?
don't you throw another best visuals for us?
Yeah, I got one more. So my last one. Actually, I got another one. If you want another one after
As
this.
many as you can give me, I will take
Okay.
them
All
all.
right.
I
All
want
right.
this list to
So
be like not 30 entries, but
yeah.
I have quite a few more. So I'll just
Okay.
say, yeah.
Cool. So next up for me is Returnal. Returnal is one of the best aesthetics I've experienced in a video game for me personally. Like
Mm-hmm.
it has this really dark atmosphere, and which is combined with the bullet hell nature of this game. So these like neon orbs being
Yeah.
shot at you in the middle of this like Geiger-esque environment, and you're constantly running into these things that are like equally as interesting as they are gross, and you don't want to go near it, but you're also like, what is that? What is that? Like, what's going on here? It has a few moments where it pulls you into this is slight tiny little spoiler. You get
Okay.
to this very early. Where you enter a house and the game becomes first person, and it almost is like
Ooh.
you're experiencing like a PT environment that is
Whoa.
stunning as
That's
well and
crazy.
really creepy, and like it does this great job of pulling you from this beautiful outside environment. The biomes are super different throughout and they change drastically. There's 6 total, I believe.
Okay.
I believe there's 6. And they're all starkly different. And like you spend so much time in an environment just trying to get to the next one. And the second you get to the next one, it feels like your jaw kind of drops because it's like, oh my God, I didn't expect them to go this direction. And then you spend another dozen hours there. And then you move to the next one. So like when you get to a new really like stark change in the environment, it's like you really earned it also. So like it's being a roguelite also really I think gives it a little bit of a bonus because it's like this carrot on the stick that like this next gorgeous thing is the thing that you're looking forward to almost. Just craziest weapon designs. I was talking about death loops being cool. This is like to another level. Like these weapons are living. Some of them are strapped to your arm in different ways or like eating your arm. Like there's just by far, I think, like as far as an aesthetic goes, like the mix between like Alien, like really maybe just leaning into that like Alien style horror, or like Prometheus, right? Like that like Ridley Scott kind of horror visual, that Geiger-esque visual is just nailed here, and I don't think I've seen any video game do it as well.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I can't wait to play that game.
It's super good.
Every additional word I hear about it, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could play it.
It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal.
Yeah. I'll shout out an indie game here that I'm gonna guess you haven't heard of, and I don't think most people have. It's called Backbone. Give this one a quick YouTube search. I don't quite have the tech to do that. I have enough tabs open right now, so I won't do it for YouTube. But if you're listening and you should check it out. Check out the trailer. Backbone is this kind of shorter.
This is pretty.
Yeah, the shorter indie game with just amazing pixel art. They have these in a lot of the game. You're kind of playing this raccoon detective guy. You're going through what is not a post-apocalyptic, but post-something. And it's set in Vancouver, so obviously I live in Vancouver. That's really cool for me to see some kind of locations that I recognize turned into this version of this game, where animals are, people, and I don't know. It's this really weird story. But I've been making a lot of pixel art this year, and I'm just like inspired and in awe at what this game does in these crazy environments and these little details. One of the most beautiful games this year. And then it also has like kind of like the Deathloop animation sequences when you're uncovering stuff. It's kind of like that for this game as well, with little dialogue sequences and just kind of this blue and orange aesthetic. And it looks really cool as well. So they kind of did that as well as like this amazing pixel art. So yeah, I don't know if I'd recommend people to play this game. I don't think the story really did it for me, but as someone living in Vancouver, it was really cool to play. And yeah, visually just absolutely amazing. Like one of those games I was just taking screenshots of all these cool locations. I don't even know what I'm going to do with these screenshots, but just look back at these really in-depth environments with all these buildings and layers to it. Really, really impressive pixel art.
Yeah, I'm literally looking at it right now, and I'm watching a trailer for it, muted, and
yeah,
this is some of the best pixel art I think I've ever seen. It
really,
does a really good job
good.
of like it's these 2D like you're on the same level as them. It's not like isometric or anything like that. And just watching this man walk through these environments is stunning. There's so much.
I know.
Almost like
just walking back and forth is like a game.
like a pixel search. Like you could take any specific thing in any of these. Like you could literally take a snapshot at any point and be like, look for the spoon, and I would stare at it for 45 minutes, no problem. Like having the time of my life because it's so damn pretty. This is
that'd be a fun mini game. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go back through some of these screenshots, and I'm gonna make some of these games, and I'll quiz people on the podcast or something. That sounds
do it.
Fun.
Do it. All right. I've got one more. I think I have another one now that I'm thinking of something that I played that I didn't get a chance, or something I saw that I didn't get a chance to play. I think actually should earn a spot. But next one for me is Halo Infinite.
Nice.
I think they took what is cool and gorgeous about Halo and really just dialed it up to 11. If you get an opportunity when you're playing the campaign to just like, when you see a grunt die, just like get real tight in on like a shot of the grunts. Like the amount of detail they put into literally every single thing, it's insanely high fidelity. Like nice. I've never been so grossed out by these things I've been looking at for almost 20 years now, right? Like Halo came out a long time ago. So like to see these things that I've looked at like been looking at for my entire life and being like, holy crap, like I actually can think about like how their jaws move and like the mechanisms of the, like, I don't know, the fact that they are aliens and they like have totally different like appendages and stuff like that. Like you can actually like really think about how that stuff works, which is weird. I never
Yeah,
even thought about
that's
that. Like,
cool.
but yeah, you walk up and you like look at their jaws flapping open, and you're like, oh my god, like I understand how their mandibles work now. It's like
Yeah.
weird. So yeah, just to see something that you're like fairly nostalgic for and just see it at like a crazy high fidelity. Zeta Halo is gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's like one of my favorite open world environments I've experienced in a really long time.
Nice.
Just the fact that you're on a piece of the Halo that's been broken off in sections, and you literally get to see, like, we have the visual up right now, and you can actually see it. Like some of these cliffs look like cliffs, but they're actually like just these cylinders that have slid out of Halo itself because it's broken off into space.
Yeah.
It does such a good job of like just nailing its aesthetic as well. Super, super, super pretty. And then watching stuff explode in that game, pretty damn pretty as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really, I don't know. The fire's good.
Nice.
I'm sometimes I'm a simple man, and just watching something go boom, it's pretty
So
exciting.
yeah, like I said, I've only played the multiplayer, and in there's a couple maps that look different, but most of them do kind of have the same aesthetic with kind of the, pine trees and the rocky mountain faces and stuff. Is there like a good amount of variety of like locations as you're going through the campaign?
So yes and no. While I did expect to be on Zeta Halo and it to have like drastically different areas outside, it doesn't. It's kind of a single biome.
Okay.
But you do go inside of places pretty regularly. And when it does that, you do get a lot of opportunities to see like Promethean technology. And like it does lean into some of the more like mysterious alien spaces that are in Halo games that do give you some variety. Where
Okay.
I do think that the open world lacks it for sure.
Okay. I do. I have a level to shout out from
Okay.
Halo when we get there, and it's
Yeah,
it's not from this kind of aesthetic. So I think they definitely have captured like different vibes even with
for
what
sure.
they have going on.
Absolutely.
The next one I'm going to shout out is Outer Wilds, Echoes of the Eye. I'm shouting this out after Halo because the main area in Echoes of the Eye is kind of like a Halo, and you're on
Yeah,
the
it
inside of
really
it,
it
and you're
is.
traveling around. So if you've ever wanted that in Halo, where like you can go around the whole thing, I mean it's smaller obviously, so that's possible. But that area alone, like when you first walk on the Stranger, and you get in there and you just look around, you look up, and you kind of like you almost get like a little queasy in your stomach looking up.
Yeah.
Really, really beautiful. And then there's, without going too much into spoilers, like there's other areas in there as well that have a really cool aesthetic and more creepy
Yep.
horror vibes. And then I just like the departure they took from the original game and like the different landscapes you find on the planets in that game. And I think they did a really good job. And yeah, I just love the Stranger. It's such a great design. The spaceship that you're traveling through most of the time. Really, really great addition to Outer Wilds. And Outer Wilds will come up quite a few more times, and I'll hold back on the spoilers until
Right.
much later on. But visually, at least, like just watch a trailer. I don't even know what they show in the trailers because I didn't watch the trailers. But
They show a little
they
bit
probably show a
of
clip
the
of Inside the Stranger, right?
yeah, I think they
Yeah.
show a good little clip of the people you might run into
Okay.
or the things you see
Right.
while you're there. That's even a
Yeah.
spoiler a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do show you a little bit of what you're getting into on the trailer.
Nice.
But I think Echoes of the Eye is pretty insane. Just like this one's a mild spoiler, but there's a moment when the area changes. And before, like, not you going somewhere else, but the area changes just from the time loop. And that's such a cool visual moment. Like, you watch all of the waters rise and fall depending on where you are on the loop or on the ring, and it is just like this gigantic, very stressful moment that is also like gorgeous, and you watch the entire environment change in front of you. It's like it's something that Outer Wilds did incredibly when it first released, like having a space that changes drastically over the course of that 20 minutes. This nails that again, which is like so impressive. And then they tease some of the cool visuals of this throughout the original Outer Wilds, like you start to realize like where you are. Man, I'm trying to dance around spoilers so heavily. But it's cool to see that visual style that they teased in the original Outer Wilds. Like you see that in a different light here, which I think
Yeah,
is really really
I
well done.
agree. Yeah, I watched like a 2.5 hour long documentary that I think Unity did with the developers, just talking
Mhm.
about the art of Outer Wilds. Really, really fun watch. I mean, as someone who's a major fan of the game. And at one point they went, because Outer Wilds, or Echoes of the Eye, I should say, kind of came out close to Halloween, and it is like kind of spooky horror vibes in there. And in the
Mhm.
documentary, they showed like the artist went in there and just changed the watercolor to like blood red and just showed what it looked like in blood red. It was kind of funny to see that quickly. And
That is
they were thinking of doing
terrifying
that in there,
sounding.
like I think they were originally thinking of like doing it like on Halloween Day or something. They were going to change it to that as
Oh
like this
no.
surprise like patch thing, but they didn't end up doing it. But yeah, beautiful beautiful game. I think you said you have another one on your
Yeah, yeah.
list.
So I have one last one. This is a game that I played at PAX years ago. Thought it was stunning. Was super excited for it to come out, and never played it. So that came out this year, and it's a game called The Artful Escape.
Okay.
Um, it is. Oh, man, I wish I had a better understanding of the story, but it's like 2D kind of side scroller where you have this guitar and you are like playing music throughout your this space, and it is this like 2D, very trippy, hand drawn art aesthetic, and it is just beautiful. It like I'm trying to think of it like I'm trying to think of something to relate it to, and it's kind of hard. It kind of stands on its own, but like imagine these um, gigantic, trippy spacescapes, essentially, and these like light bridges and things like that, and you're literally just like gliding across them playing your guitar, and it is just this stunning show that also as you may expect has incredible music lined up as well with it. I believe it is I'm gonna double check myself real quick, but I'm pretty sure it is about the story of Bob Dylan done
Oh,
through this like
okay.
really trippy art aesthetic. So I think the music is
I didn't
also
know
very
that.
like
I'm a big Bob
folky
Dylan
and
fan, so
guitar
I gotta check
driven.
that out.
Let me make sure it's Bob Dylan and not somebody else. Um, yeah. It is.
Whoa,
It's based on folk music by Bob Dylan. So it's about kind of his
interesting.
story. And yeah, it's a rock opera. The music is a rock opera. So obviously, I think that should end up in best music as well. But I'm going off of what I remember
Yeah,
from PAX and not what I played this year. So
sure,
I'm
fair.
sure they have made it something even grander than
Yeah.
what I touched originally.
I have a few more here, so maybe
Yeah,
I'll go
rattle
through
them
these
off.
a little bit quicker. But another smaller indie game called Genesis Noir. Um,
Never heard
definitely,
of it.
definitely do a Google of this one as well. This one is kind of this. It's a very jazzy game. I'm going to shout it out in music as well. Spoilers. But very
Oh, this is
jazzy game with generally like a black and white and it's kind of yellow as that kind of guides you around.
right.
Very trippy game. Like I think the idea is that there's like someone is like shooting someone and then you go into like the path of the bullet and it's like just the history of space time as we know it. It's like really weird. It's
It's
very
very like
strange.
into the
Yeah.
void thing. I don't know if
It's
anybody's
very
familiar with that
intense.
movie, but visually not anything like Enter the Void. Man, this is
Yeah.
like yeah, just stark thick white lines, all black and
Yeah.
white while still being a 3D space, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and kind
Like
of like
it's
It Takes Two, it like changes itself up constantly.
cool.
Like in one scene it's actually grounded, you're like walking around a city and then in the next moment you're in some like imaginary flower dimension and it's pretty crazy. I got stuck at one point and I figured like I feel like this game with a guide it just kind of defeats the purpose, so I didn't end up finishing it. I played I think maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours or something of it, but
Right.
really beautiful game in that amount of time. Another one I'll shout out is The Ascent.
Oh
I
yeah,
liked
I
The
did play that.
Ascent. I
Yeah,
played
I
it
played Descent
for
as well.
maybe 4 or 5 hours or something, and I enjoyed it. I think gameplay wise, there was something about it that didn't really stick with me. But
Same.
in terms of the kind of cyberpunk aesthetic, more zoomed out isometric style, I think it's just very very beautiful, very very
I
beautiful
think that's
game.
its strength. If anything, the thing that kept me playing that game was how damn gorgeous it would be. Like every once in a while you'd walk up to a space and it would pull way out and you would see like how much work they put into just creating this really greasy, like dark cyberpunk aesthetic. And I just like, it sells its visuals incredibly. I just wish I cared for the combat as much.
Yeah, I wonder if like maybe it was a game I should have reached out to you and we could have played co-op or something, and maybe it would have been more gripping or something. But I mean, I still got a good I got my enjoyment out of it. I mean, it was Game Pass game. Hopped in there, checked it out for like 3 or 4 hours, something like that, and I really enjoyed the time I had with it. I got
one to sneak in.
Okay.
Thinking, well, like realizing there are games on this list that I've already thrown out that I haven't even touched. One that I feel like if that's the case, I would be amiss to not put in there is Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 2 is got its once again like an aesthetic that is just wholly its own. It nothing looks like it, and it has just it rides on that aesthetic. It seems like a lot where like you go to these different areas like the doctor's office or something like that, or the mailman, right? And you just get like totally different energy than the place that you were previously because you were literally going in people's minds, and it's a different aesthetic depending on the person that you're digging into, while having this like really, really cool like Burton style. It's just gorgeous. Like that is another game that you can literally pull up any singular image of and it will be stunning. I have another one too. So I'm thinking of them as we're going. Actually,
this is good. This is what I want.
Cool.
This is our time to unload. And speaking of that, I'm gonna put Unpacking on here.
This is another one that's on my list of stuff I really wanted to play. That game looks so cool.
I love this game so much. I think visually it's once again pixel art that I, as someone who's been working on pixel art a lot, I'm like, man, these guys have got it down. Like the amount of details they're able to put into these small little items that really add to the story and what you're doing. The color choices, even like this game just feels very nostalgic for me. And there's part of it too where it's like, I think the first, you go through like different time periods, and the first one's like 1997. Then it kind of like roughly follows my my like age growing up, I guess. The character has like a GameCube and then a Wii and then all these Nintendo handheld consoles. Like it just feels like so much of it feels like it was, I don't know, made just for me or my generation or something like that. And then the art of it, like the color choices, the environments, the detail, really, really amazing stuff. I love the visuals of this game. I mean, I love everything about this game. I love Unpacking. So definitely shout outs to the visuals there.
That is one that I have had recommended to me about 300 times, but everybody's always like, it's a nice chill game. Like get into it when you just want to spend some time doing something that's a little relaxing. And I'm always like, I want to shoot stuff. So that one's been on definitely. It's dumb that I didn't get to that game this year. Honestly, I should have. So Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I think is a really, really fantastic example of what the PlayStation 5 can do. I think it is the best a Ratchet and Clank game has ever looked, and those always have a super fun art style, like all of these wacky, like Pixar-like characters, and just fun aliens of every single type, and little like, I don't know, cute little furry things up to big grotesque-looking monsters. While just having like a fidelity level that is just unmatched, honestly. Not unmatched. We just talked about Forza. So like there's it is a definite showcase of what a high fidelity game can look like and what the PlayStation 5 can do. It feels like you're playing through a Pixar game. And that is all that I could ask from a Ratchet and Clank game at the end of the day. It like once again takes something that you're super familiar with, and it's like, what if this was the most gorgeous version of that possible? And it does exactly that. It's stunning once again, but it's more Ratchet and Clank at the end of the day. So if you know what Ratchet and Clank looks like, imagine that up against the most modern Pixar movie. And it does exactly what it's trying to do.
I love the there's the one gun where you like, I guess like just it starts growing ivy around enemies and like kind of freezes them. Yep. I love that. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, like, oh man, like getting into the guns, like they make so many, like the guns do so many different things, and they like end up changing the environment really heavily as well. Like the sprinkler, like you were just referring to, literally like, or there's like the pixelator, which like it's a shotgun that you shoot enemies with, and they turn into literal like voxels and they fall apart,
That's
which is
amazing.
really neat too. Yeah, they do some really clever stuff with the guns that also lean into how strong the fidelity has gotten. They can do some stuff that like is impressive because of that. Like, so
Yeah.
making things look older is a thing that they can do in that game as well, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah. Okay, my next game, I have 3 more here. I have 3 more.
Okay.
My next one, I'm going to shout out Inscription.
Oh, yeah. What the hell? That one's not on mine. How?
It's okay. I don't think, I mean, I was prepared to just throw out $1 million on here, whereas I think when I conveyed what we're doing here, you thought maybe like keeping it small, like you're my favorite.
Yeah, I kept it a little
favorites,
tight.
I'm shouting out everything that I visually
think
found
of.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Inscription, I don't think I want to say too much about it because I think we'll save Inscription spoilers for a later hour in the day. But we'll just settle with this. I love the aesthetics of the game. I love the look of the card game and the cabin you're in, and then we'll just say that there's more to it. And lots of great. That's all. I'm gonna end there. Lots of great. That's my
that game looks good.
Yeah.
Often, and
Yeah.
it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, we'll go with that. And if it's maybe a top 5 contender, maybe we could break down more of it. But we'll just go with that for now. You have another one here?
I do. This is an iPhone game called Fantasian.
Okay.
This game got a little bit of buzz earlier in the year because it is created by the original creator and original composer of the original Final Fantasy games. So, but the really cool part about the visuals in this game is like the characters are these kind of like pretty typical JRPG looking characters, but all of the spaces they are in are handmade dioramas. That the developers actually made every single space in that game by hand and then filmed it and then put the characters into those spaces, and they look gorgeous. They really do like these look like these perfect like claymation spaces, and then they have these kind of like almost like they have the characters are a mix between like a traditional JRPG anime character and this claymation style, so they feel like they fit there really nicely as well. Just beautiful, like especially on like iPads and iPhones have like really high contrast displays, and they're retina displays or whatever. They're just really beautiful screens to look at, and having this like gorgeous handmade diorama, I don't know, it almost looks like your Gumbies or your like Thomas the Tank Engine or something like that, like where you can clearly tell that they like this tree is something someone put together and then stuck into a little piece of clay.
Dude, I gotta
right?
check this out. That sounds like my jam.
It's very cool. Pretty. The combat's also super fun. So like, just I don't know how you feel about JRPGs. It's very much an old school JRPG. But yeah, it's called Fantasian. Very beautiful game.
Is it only on iPhone, or could I play it on my Android
think it's
phone?
only iOS at the moment. It may go elsewhere. But yeah,
I'll take my girlfriend's phone and I'll
there you go. It's in 2 parts. I think both parts are out at the moment. Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool. It's something that this one slipped my mind for a second, and then out of nowhere I was like, oh yeah, that was gorgeous. But it was also one of those games that I played in the beginning of the year. So that recency bias coming into effect.
Okay, I got 2 more here, and they're both heavy hitters, I would say. I actually have a background for this one, so let's talk about Resident Evil Village.
Yeah.
So Resident Evil, I don't think there's a colon in the title, right? It's just Resident Evil Village.
I think it's just Resident Evil. Depending on where you live in the world, also it's different.
Yeah,
because they had to sneak that 8 in there somehow.
Right. So yeah, Resident Evil Village is up there with Ratchet and Clank and Forza Horizon in terms of just like the visual detail and the quality of what we're looking at here is just like at the top of the industry, like just amazing visuals. And I think like for me, there's just so many distinct areas in Resident Evil. Have you finished the game? Because I remember we talked about this.
I have not completed the final area. That's it.
We won't say what the final area is. But,
okay.
Actually, we might in levels, but we'll
no worries. Yeah, I can handle a spoiler or two there.
There's a lot of distinct areas for me, like this opening area where you're just in the village itself, to me was really cool. It was just like, man, if like all of Skyrim's art team worked on one singular
Space.
tiny area, it
Yeah.
would be like, this is it. Like, it was so cool walking through there. There's, the castle obviously is really cool. Just these kind of ornate decorations. Every little banister and whatever has all this level of detail in it. And the later areas in the game as well look really cool in their own special ways. I visually, this is probably my favorite part about the game was just like the visuals of it. It looks so
Right.
good. The character designs as well. It's all there. It's such a beautiful game. Really impressed with it. We'll talk about it more later as well.
I 1,000% agree. That is one of the prettiest games that came out this year, and another one that I was like, how did I forget about you? How did I
It's
forget
okay.
about you? They're all coming back out of nowhere. Yeah, just the character designs in that game are so damn good, like menacing,
Yeah.
because they really do have this like that they push up against the uncanny valley of like, wow, these guys look real. These look terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone talks about Lady Dimitrescu and obviously, hot vampire lady, cool. But there's a lot of great character design in here.
Oh my gosh,
outside
absolutely.
of that character, so yeah.
I forget the name of him, but he literally is doing his best Nicolas Cage the entire
game.
Heisenberg,
yeah.
Heisenberg doing
love
his
Heisenberg.
yeah, it's so good, so good. Anyway,
do you have any more? I have one more at the end of this. And you're gonna be like, oh, I forgot this one as well. I guarantee it. But
I do have one more. I hope it's not your one more.
Let's hear it.
So Death's Door.
Okay.
Death's
Door. Not the one I was gonna say.
Another game that does a fantastic job at having a like diorama style aesthetic. Like imagine a Legend of Zelda game, like a 2D Legend of Zelda game. But with all of these like really it has like this, I want to say a dark aesthetic, but it's not like moody or grimacing. It's like it's a pretty lovely place to be while still having a moodiness to it. And then all the character designs are just super cute and like so well thought out that I just like absolutely adored anytime I would run into a new character. There's the first boss you fight is this woman who is literally has a giant pot on, like, I believe it's on her head. It's like on her head throughout parts, but it's not. Yeah. Hold on, let me get a picture of her up real quick, because she's gonna come up a little bit later too, and I want to get that visual because it's been a little while.
Shoot me the name and I'll put it up on the stream quickly.
It's Grandma the Witch of Urns.
Grandma the Witch of Urns.
Yeah. Oh, it's not gonna. Oh, there she is. There she is. So a few just there she goes. She has a pot on her head, and she just has this like perfect little kind of, I don't know how to explain this art style. It is so painterly, and
I like that.
it kind of has a little bit of that Burton-esque appeal as well. While just it's just character design like I had not seen it, and while also having this like kind of cool clay style throughout that's very clean looking while also looking like somebody could have handmade it. Once again, kind of in the same vein as Fantasian, except Fantasian actually built their spaces where this looks like they could have.
Yeah, cool. I think I have one more. I had a couple like, I'll shout out these very quickly. Humankind, really beautiful game. Didn't really play enough of it personally. Habaroxia 2, another kind of old school NES sort of look, or more SNES sort of look. And then the Outer Worlds DLC, Murder on Eridanos, which came out this year, had like a couple really cool looking areas.
But at all, I didn't know that came out.
Yeah, I liked the first DLC for Outer Worlds. The second one, that one that actually came out this year, not my favorite. So I would say play the first one for sure.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't know if you need to go back to it. But anyway, the last game I'll actually shout out here is Sable. Sable.
Oh yeah.
And I think I'm actually saving best for last year. Sable is probably my favorite game visually this year. I think it's just one of a kind. There's no game that quite looks like it. It's I have it in the background here on YouTube, but it's kind of the cell shaded look, these kind of very pastel, almost faded colors that match like this desert that's kind of withering away.
Mhm.
The game changed, like the day night cycle changes what you're looking at like drastically. There's I think a couple clips online of just like a character's in one place and then a time lapse, and it's crazy how much it changes. There's points when if you're in like a really dark cave, the colors like slowly get pulled away, and there's points where it's literally one color. It's just like this purple color kind of in the background of this YouTube, kind of this
Yeah.
purple, and then like the cell shaded outline of things. And that's really cool that the game still has like this level of detail in these moments that pulls away all the color completely. But then you're like back outside and you have all these colors again. The character designs are cool, and then even the animations of your character's movement are kind of stilted. So like
They're
each
they're
frame is like
24
held
frames, right?
right. Yeah,
They're
like
24 frames, which is to mimic film, right? It's the
right.
same, but the rest of the game is like
Yeah,
at like 60 or 120 or
yeah,
144. So it's this really strange dynamic where you literally look like you're just like stop motion almost.
yeah. It
It's
looks
really
really
cool.
cool.
It
It's
looks
really
really cool.
neat. I have to throw this out here. I'll throw it out here now that this game has really massive performance issues. It got to a point after about 4 or 5 hours for me where the game like progressively the frame rate got worse, and
Yep.
not what you're talking about of the intended lower frame rate, but
Yeah.
just chopping to the point where it's missing inputs and all that. It got to a point where I was loving it so much. It was like honestly maybe in my top 5. Like I was loving it, but
Yeah.
the performance was so bad that I had to put it to bed and say I'll come back to it later when it's more playable. And then
I had a similar experience.
I kind of wanted to shout out this because this is on Xbox Series X. This has like the tag that says like optimized for Xbox Series X. So, well, I don't know what that means. It obviously means nothing. It's complete bullshit, and it kind of makes me salty. Like it just seems like, well, now I don't have any faith in what that means ever for like
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Microsoft's seal of approval. This game is clearly not it because the frame rate is so bad. So yeah, it's unfortunate because this was like on the collision course to be like maybe even my favorite game of the year. I was loving it so much,
Wow.
and then yeah, it became unplayably bad performance, and that's really sad. But I can't say anything else like about the visuals. The visuals are just on another level, super unique, and the music as well. We'll talk about in a bit. But I love this game, and I think this is best for last for me. I want to see this on our top 5. I want to fight for it
Okay,
here,
I
so.
feel that it's definitely its own thing. I think the only game that it reminds me of even slightly is maybe Journey, which is also one of the best looking games of all time. So good company, good company.
Yeah.
But I had a similar situation. I played it for about 2 hours, started to see some pretty serious issues with its performance, and then I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll put it aside for a while. But I tell you what, I have been listening to that soundtrack all year.
So good.
A lot.
Yeah.
So a little spoiler is that
Yeah.
definitely made my best music as well.
Dante, do you have any more you want to put in visuals here? Or should we start dwindling this down to our
I
top
had
5?
4 on my list and I threw out about a dozen extra.
Yeah,
So
that's what happens. Yeah, we're already over an hour here just on the first category. That's classic for us.
Right.
Okay, so let's dwindle this down. So we're gonna
I
dwindle
can
this
start
down to
cutting
top
stuff
5.
immediately.
Yeah, we're not gonna
That's
rank
probably
these.
easier.
It's just gonna be a top 5. Is there anything? Let's just like I think we could just go from this list and lock things that we feel are solid. Is there any on here that like you need to see in the top 5?
Returnal.
Okay.
1,000,000%.
Okay.
I
like that.
Also, Guilty Gear.
Yeah, I want to see Guilty Gear up there as well. I think that's a good. I didn't have it on my list because I didn't play it, but
Yeah.
I'm really glad you shouted it out because that's for me like that's a lock.
It's the best. It's the best looking fighting game that's ever existed, as far as I'm concerned. Like it's really impressive. It moves so smoothly too. Like that's something I didn't even mention. It really runs like butter.
Nice.
Even online.
Well, yeah, it has
the netcode in
rollback,
that
right?
game is so good. Yeah, it has rollback,
Yeah.
and the netcode is fantastic, which is a first for Arc systems. Works like most of their games. I don't touch online because the netcode's so bad.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss.
You know what else has rollback is Spelunky 2. Okay, I want to see Sable. I want to see Sable on here. Are you comfortable putting Sable, Sable in our top 5? Okay. So looking at our list right now, yeah, Returnal, Guilty Gear, and Sable. What would be the last 2 that we would want to put in like our top 5? I think for me it would be like Deathloop would be up there, or I mean personally Unpacking or Inscription.
I think Inscription.
I think I'd even put Resident Evil in there.
And I'm in agreement for Inscription.
Okay.
All right, so here's the thing. I feel like there's a few games on here that are running solely on maybe not. That's not true. That's not true. I was gonna say less on art style and more on fidelity, and I was gonna put like, let's say Halo and Ratchet um,
Forza, maybe.
and Forza.
Yeah.
But then also I was thinking Resident Evil goes in there as well. But Resident Evil really does kind of have a pretty fantastic art style throughout. Like it does change up its spaces
I
in a
think
way
so.
that I think is it makes you excited to move on out of the village, to do something, just be somewhere else. While like the village is still super impressive. So I guess I can see an argument for village over those other games that are like just have strong fidelity in general. And I think Village also has a good art style backing it up.
Yeah, I think the because we're like well, without spoiling too much, we'll say that there's kind of like a factory area. There's kind of a swampy area. The castle obviously is pretty iconic. And then for me, there's kind of like a underrated area in Village, which is I don't even know what it's called. I think I maybe put it in levels. I guess you would call it just like the stronghold. I think is what they call it in like the walkthrough. I played this whole game with the walkthrough, by the way.
Oh
I'm not a
wow!
I'm I'll
Lead
go into
me.
this. I'll go into this tangent real quick. But Biohazard was like
Mm.
so scary for me, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
A
And
much
that like
scarier game. A much
yeah,
scarier game than 8, I'd say.
and not knowing what to do is purposeful. Right? Like they make these things kind of almost arbitrary so that you're like in these spaces longer. But for me, I couldn't even play Biohazard. Like I played like an hour maybe. Like each time I'd play for like 15 minutes and then I'd be too scared and leave. So I was like, okay, to enjoy Village, like I want to see this game. So I'm gonna play it on the easiest difficulty, and I'm gonna use a guide the entire time. And I ended up loving it. Like that was the way I
Nice.
ended up enjoying Village. So I have seen all the areas now, and maybe I'm not playing the game as intended, but there were still really scary moments. And I just didn't want to mess around with like, oh, I have to grab this random thing from this clock and take it over to this random drawer, and these random things that like they use for solutions in this game that are so
Yeah.
weird to me. But anyway, so back to Village. Yeah, the Village area, as I talked about earlier, amazing. This stronghold area that I was talking about is kind of like it just reminded me of like Lord of the Rings. There's like these kind of orcs
That's
that you're
cool.
fighting there, and
Yeah.
it's just like this old decrepit castle. And yeah, it just was like, why am I playing a Lord of the Rings game all of a sudden? And then I'm back in like Skyrim, HD.
Yeah.
And then I'm like in this beautiful castle, and then this factory in the swamp. Like
Swamp. Yep.
really, really amazing art style and different areas. And then yeah, the fidelity's up there as well. And then the character designs, as we talked about with the Duke. And I love Heisenberg. I love Heisenberg's hammer is like one of my favorite weapons of the year. So
Like
I'd happily put Village in the top 5. I think this game is just a visual treat.
the vampire girls were like every girl who played or saw a trailer for Resident Evil this year dressed up as those
Yeah.
vampires for Halloween. Like
Yeah.
it definitely caught a lot of people just from the visuals alone. So I think it earns it. I honestly
right.
like that's a surprise. So I have a 5th for you.
Okay.
And I think it's one you're gonna go, okay, and then we're gonna just move on.
Sure.
Just literally looking at images of that Backbone game.
Okay.
I was like, holy crap, that might be the best looking pixel art I've ever seen in my life. I cannot wait to play that game now. That's stunning. That's absolutely stunning.
I agree. I think it's great. I mean, if you feel that confident off of a trailer, then I'm happy to put up there because it seriously is just amazing. And I just wanted the game to go on more and more, not because I was into the story, but I just wanted to see more of these cityscapes and more places I'm familiar with as a local here. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen pixel art on that level. Like I said, every single image I saw, I was like, wow, this could be its own book, like a visual book where I'm literally meant to find Waldo or something.
Yeah. Now,
I think Inscription's getting
yeah
the wrong.
I'm feeling like Inscription and Deathloop are maybe getting shafted here, but at the same time, I think those games are going to get praised a lot later on. So I guess I don't feel too bad about it, but at the same time, I do. Oh man, I love the visuals of those two games. You know what? Maybe as much as we love Backbone, maybe we leave it off. Maybe it's the number 6 honorable mention. But I think maybe we should put Inscription or Deathloop in there instead. Maybe.
Yeah. I would actually go and say, well, we're getting contentious already. I would say Deathloop and Inscription earn it over Resident Evil still.
Okay.
While I do think Resident Evil does like from a fidelity perspective, once again, is insane. Like anytime you see like one of the monsters or
Yeah.
see a just a new character for the first time, you're like, holy crap, these look like real people, or this is like actually terrifying because of how realistic they look. It does fit this general horror aesthetic that is pre-existing, right? Whereas like Inscription and Deathloop have aesthetics I've never seen in video games.
Yeah.
Right? Like
That's true. Yep.
Inscription is this weirdly uncomfortable space to be in for large parts of it, and then it changes out of nowhere. And I'd say some of the aesthetics in Inscription are better than others though.
Yes.
So that might be a negative.
I think our first zone, our cabin there is probably the best in terms of just
giving you that little space to move around in. I don't know. Yeah, it's just visual, so like I don't know how much the rest of the aesthetic leans into it, but it really sells it. Like the vocal performances, the like weird like off pitch warbling that comes out of the characters' mouths is like really unsettling, and like it goes an extra step to make you feel like uncomfortable in the space that you probably should. And then all of the fun card art and I don't know that it earns it later as much. So maybe I'm like talking my way out of Inscription a bit.
Right.
Whereas Deathloop, man, I don't know. Maybe
I think I'd go Deathloop over Inscription.
Yeah, I'd say
there's no way I'm
so
kicking Sable off. I could kick off Resident Evil, but I want to keep Guilty Gear on there as well. I guess so. You're feeling like
I just locked Returnal like immediately. I know.
Yeah,
I'm not even willing to discuss it.
Because
Returnal
if I look
is
at
like
this list. I mean, Returnal. I haven't played Guilty Gear or Returnal, obviously.
Pull a picture of Returnal up. Hold on. I will just see.
Send me a link and I can pull it up on the screen.
A Google looks for Returnal, and you can
get
an idea
it is beautiful. I guess I've only seen
bonkers that game is.
I've probably only seen like trailers and video and stuff for the first area, right? So I'm kind of basing it off that.
This is
and I'm sure there's a lot more to it.
A pretty generic photo of a space. I'm trying to find one that's like higher fidelity. Okay. Copy image.
But I think those other ones are solid. I would also I would also give Inscription. I would say maybe we just leave Inscription off, and then we can have the rest of these 5, and I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. I think this is a good looking 5. I just sent you a little space you walk up to. Nothing too spoilery, but like there's just so many moments in the game where you just walk up to something and you're like, this is terrifying, and I'm in awe and cannot wait to see what comes next.
Yeah,
you don't see a portal or anything like that until this exact moment, and you're just like, what the hell is about to happen? This is crazy. And then just like any of the bullet hell moments are like literally could be their own little pieces of like abstract art. You could just take every dot on a screen and just like that be an amazing wallpaper.
All right. Well, I'm happy with this list then. Are you happy with this list?
I am. I got 2 of my faves. I got a lot of my favorites on here actually. I think I might have.
It's a great year.
I
think every year there's a lot of great art styles.
Oh yeah.
But here's our top 5 in no particular order: Returnal, Guilty Gear Strive, Sable, Resident Evil Village, Deathloop, and then I think kind of honorable mentions to Inscription and Backbone, which we're very close to making on there.
Absolutely.
But yeah, great year for visuals.
For sure. PS5 really showing its or I guess not just PS5, but
Xbox,
new gen, and then like the PC games that are able to be creative because they're not trying to keep up with last gen anymore. We've been getting spoiled with some pretty sights for sure.
Yeah. Dante, let's go right into music.
Let's
go right into music here.
We definitely
I'm gonna have less for this one.
Same.
But still some good shout outs. So maybe I will start us off this time. And I'm going to first shout out a game that we haven't talked about yet, which is this game that you probably also have not heard of called Echo Beach. Echo Beach is like an itch.io game. It's like I played it in my browser. Like it's a browser game. And essentially the premise of this game is that you are, I guess you're in this future where music has been banned because it's deemed unproductive.
Is this like some Fahrenheit 451 stuff?
Yeah, and so you play this person who is using your computer and you're kind of searching around forums trying to find people who are creating music, and then you
Oh, that
like
seems cool.
essentially you're sending the dogs after them essentially. So obviously
Oh wait, you're no, you're on the opposite side I was expecting. I want to preserve the music, not
I know.
send it off to
Hey,
get
maybe
ruined.
I haven't beaten it. Maybe in the end you decide that what you're doing is wrong and then you do something else. But in the first couple levels, I definitely sicked the dogs on some people. So yeah, it's really cool structurally and just a very simple game. And the reason I'm shouting it out here is because and this is probably against the rules, but as the person who's searching these things down, it's like a detective game. You're using clues from forums and messages people sent to other people to determine like who's who, because they all kind of have their pseudonyms, their online like music names. So you're listening to some of their tracks to get details. So like for example, one thing might be that someone has a song about their boyfriend, and then you're listening to that song, and in that song they say the boyfriend's name, and then you can use that name to track their name, and that's like kind of the thing you're doing in there.
Yeah, that seems fun.
As far as I know, all the songs in here are freshly made for the game. I've only played a couple of the levels, but in there's like maybe 15 different songs that I've seen so far, and they're just like fun pop songs, maybe some more like ballad things like that, indie rock, that kind of thing. And I just think it's really cool that these songs are not only just like well-made songs, and they're kind of shorter. Usually they're like a minute to 2 minutes, but then they also like hide clues that you are using to uncover details about the story and the world. So really, really cool design. Definitely a shout out there.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds really neat. And
yeah, it's a free browser game, so go
hopefully
check
there's
it
a
out.
turn. There's a story turn at the end where you're not anti-music man. I don't know. That's
hopefully.
If you're in the video, there's hella records behind me, so I'm clearly not into that. But still, like, yeah, really, really cool idea. So for me, let's start off with what we just ended on, and I want to shout out Returnal. I think Returnal has really, really incredible, moody, uncomfortable music throughout. A very like Hans Zimmer approach, like where it, like think of just, I don't know, just like a strong score in a movie. Like it feels like that. Like it sets a tone in a way that I once again haven't experienced in a long time. Like that is a game that I want to play with headphones. I want to feel immersed in that world, and I want to be kind of shaken by the atmosphere that they've created. And the music is just a stellar part of that. Returnal does a good job of making me feel like, man, I really want to be here and play this game because the game's so damn fun and hard and challenging. But like, oh my God, I feel so stressed out and uncomfortable because of the music and the visuals. It does an incredible job of making me feel like, man, maybe it is time to stop playing. But in all of the best ways.
Yeah, that's amazing. I guess I maybe should have mentioned, like, we're talking about music here, but I think we're also maybe talking a bit about sound effects or a little other like just sound design in general. So maybe not just music, but best sound.
Well, this is music. This is music still. Okay. Like I think the music is creating that effect. The sound. I think maybe even sound might open this up to a can of worms that
maybe we won't go down that can of worms then.
I was thinking very much about like the score being setting a stage, right?
Okay.
Like it definitely is. Oh, here we go.
Well, the reason I bring that up is for Deathloop. Deathloop has a lot of, I guess you would call them like, I guess you would consider it part of the score, but there's little things like when you finish a level, it's like the dun dun.
Yeah,
dun,
it sells that like
twists
007 effect.
That put the period on the end of the sentence when you play through a level. But then the music itself is great. Like I love the action music when you get into a battle, and it just like goes on repeat. And then as soon as you're done battle, it like just magically ends like right at the right time always. There's a lot of songs that are created like, because one of the characters in the game, Frank Spicer, makes music, and so you hear some of his songs throughout the game. Charlie, another character, has this love song that he writes for another one of the characters, and I love that song. I listened to that song like 100 times this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love Deathloop's music. I think it totally helps that vibe, that 70s vibe, work perfectly. It's really crucial to this game, I think, for the aesthetic, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been able to sell that like noir 007 energy without that sound, without the soundtrack being
Yeah.
right on tone for what they were doing visually.
Mm-hmm. Got another one?
Um, yeah, Guilty Gear Strive once again.
Okay.
You're gonna hear this guy come up a few times. Guilty Gear Strive is music is hilarious and so fun and like just over the top. And Guilty Gear's music always has been this way, so I'm so glad that they're continuing that run of making the most fun, shreddy Japanese butt rock. Like, it's the best way I can explain it. It's just hilarious. And when you're like fighting in the middle of these like this ridiculous soundtrack going on top of it, it's just like it's a blast. It really, really sets the mood. It makes that game seem so much more like it's not taking itself seriously. But while the music is like, sounds like I'm kind of talking shit on it a little bit, but I'm not. Like, it's just so damn fun. There's just like ripping guitars throughout and these like almost like ballad style vocals coming on with this like with Japanese singers speaking English, which is always like, it's kind of hilarious to just like hear all of the mispronunciations and stuff like that. Like they just do such a good job of like making it feel like this just like fun rocking place to be in a way that like I think Guilty Gear has always done, and it is just equal parts metal while it is like being like silly and playful. Super fun to listen to. Like a soundtrack that I think stands on its own, which I think is a good thing to say about like some of these coming up, because like if you want to listen to this outside of the game, I think it's doing an incredible job.
Nice. Next one for me is going to be Cyber Shadow. This game came out early on in the year.
You always pull out the indie games that I've never even like
this one's on Game
not seen
Pass.
anywhere.
This
okay,
one's on
good
Game
to know.
Pass, so pretty easy to go check it out. It's pretty much just a modern day Ninja Gaiden, I guess. Which I mean, not even, it's not like I've played those games back in the day or something, but like NES era has really like nice pixel art, really fun combat. It even like goes so far with the NES kind of idea that even though obviously we play an Xbox controller that has all these buttons, it only uses like just the two buttons on there, just the A and B essentially. Really fun game, and the music is great. Just shout outs back to the NES era. It fits that vibe perfectly. Nothing that you maybe haven't heard before, but I think it's really great music, and also I think music that pretty much stands on its own outside the game. So definitely check that one out. It's a really fun game. I think I've played a few levels of it, and then I actually came back to it recently. I played some more, and I was like, oh man, I really love this game. And I think maybe if I played the whole thing, it might have cracked my top 10. Not quite this year, but I did really like the game, and I think it's on Game Pass. Everyone should go check it out. It's fun, it's difficult, great boss fights, all around just a great game.
Little tangent. Did you ever touch The Messenger?
I did. Yeah, it seems it's very much in line with that game as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
I think a little bit less meta than Messenger.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a lot less meta in the story, and then also like the Messenger like end up going back through the areas and stuff like that. Whereas this is more, as far as I've played through at least, like more of a straight ahead and like confines of what the NES was capable of, and it sticks to that.
Cool.
But yeah,
it looks cool. It looks cool.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, I want to shout out Fantasian again. Fantasian, like I said, was created by the original creator of Final Fantasy and also Nobuyo Uematsu, who is like a noteworthy composer for the Final Fantasy games over years, which have some of the best music in video games. I believe this continues to go down that route, like really gorgeous orchestral music through these. It really, once again, like makes you feel at home in its environment, which I think is important, that it's like following the aesthetic really nicely. But just really beautiful orchestral moments. And then whenever like a fight starts, you end up with a little bit more like pep and jauntiness in the music, where you're still having like tons of strings and horns, and it like feels like you are standing in front of a symphony while you're playing that game. It's
man,
very,
this game
very
sounds
beautiful
fucking
music.
awesome.
It's good. It's really good.
I should have found an iPhone to play this on. That just sounds awesome.
It's really, really great. If you have the patience for a old school, like almost Super Nintendo or early PlayStation style JRPG, it's one of the best that have been made in, I don't know, maybe the past decade.
Cool.
Mm.
That's amazing. Dude, randomly, like I've heard about this game and I didn't really think about it much. It didn't seem like anything special, but now hearing you actually just describe what the game is, I'm like, holy
Yeah,
shit, this like
it's
is
cool.
heavily
It's
underrated this year. I
really,
feel like
really cool. Yeah, and it's a bummer that it had to stick on phones for people to get any
yeah.
enjoyment out of it, because it could play on any system easily.
Okay, next one for me. I'm gonna shout out another game that we've talked about already, Sable. You talked about this a little bit
Yeah,
as
it's
well. Like
fucking amazing.
the music is fantastic. You have Japanese Breakfast, like who created at least a few songs for this game, and when those songs play in the game, it's like goosebumps on your arms.
Some
Like
of
it's
my
just
favorite songs of the year
yeah,
are those
it's
Japanese breakfast songs that were made for Sable.
and then like even the other stuff, like just the environmental stuff is great. There's this little tune that plays when you go to, I guess, like upgrade your vehicle, and it's like
Mhm.
this simple little beat, and it's like it doesn't ever deviate from that. It's just this one little beat, but it's also great, and once again fits that aesthetic, which I don't like. Obviously, this art style is so unique and unlike anything else. It's like, well, how do you really capture that in music? And they fucking did it in such a magical way in creating like not only this soundtrack or this visual style that stands out on its own, but also the soundtrack that stands out on its own. I just really wish this game didn't have frame rate issues because I
Yeah.
loved it so much.
Yeah, like this is honestly, like I have this album saved on Spotify at the moment. Like it's something I reach back to every
Yeah.
once in a while. Like the
That's
second I get
awesome.
in a car, it's something that comes on often. Like
Yeah.
this is a standout for the year for sure. All right, so next one for me is Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker.
Okay.
This one's cheating a little, not because this is an expansion that came out this year, but because Final Fantasy, as far as I know, has the most music in any video game ever. So I might be kind of just extrapolating my enjoyment of Final Fantasy 14's music over the past 10 years almost, but 14 still, or the Endwalker specifically, still does such a good job of creating these like really, really kick-ass music moments. Like there's plenty of times when it is just like big orchestral jams, like I kind of explained in Fantasian, but then there's all types of other stuff going on. There's like plenty of like math rock and metal moments throughout, like especially when you end up in a boss fight, like there'll be like screaming vocals and like all types of just like over the top musicianship. The main theme for Endwalker was done by a band called Architects, which is a metal band out of the UK. So like they've gone and gotten people well outside of the like J-pop, J-rock, and then orchestral themes that you typically see in a lot of Japanese games these days, and like really just go to the limits and create like a million different kind of moments through the music that like really take some of these to the next level. Like you'll be walking up and it'll be some very like emotional theme, and then the bad guy will walk up and then just like guitars start shredding in the background, and it gets really just like emotional in the right way. Like it is, and Endwalker is incredible. The entire Final Fantasy 14 soundtrack is just there's like maybe 10 songs throughout these hundreds of songs in there that I don't like. Like I could listen to almost any of them all the time. My go-to listening music when I'm cleaning these days is just to put on some Final Fantasy music and just go to town. Incredible. It's always been incredible, but it continues to be incredible.
Fantastic. Let's see, what else do I have here? Let's shout out Unpacking again. Unpacking, I don't think it really has that many songs in it, but the ones that are in there, like I just want them on repeat all day long.
Yeah.
Once again, they hit that kind of nostalgic nerve in me, and it works perfectly because in this game you're just kind of putting items in a house and then reorganizing them, and maybe some of them are in the wrong place, so you got to like pick them up and put them somewhere else. Very just calming lo-fi game, and the music is just kind of this upbeat, really happy music that kind of ebbs and flows. It goes down and just kind of is maybe a little bit silent for a bit, and then it kind of swirls up into like these big flurries of music again. And then I think even the this is maybe going a bit beyond, but this kind of the sound design fits into it too, where all the items kind of have unique sound effects for whatever surface you're putting them on, and the way that like these little clicking sounds, these little pop and little click, like the way they just fit into like the music, it just works perfectly. I love Unpacking's music. There's not a ton of it in terms of quantity, but it's
Right.
so good.
What's
I
there
love
is
it.
great.
Yeah,
I can't wait to play that game. That seems like if I'm ever
yeah,
in a bad mood or something like that, that game needs to come up and I can just like feel nice and calm for a little
it's
bit.
great. It's amazing.
Awesome. My last one that I have to recommend is Shin Megami Tensei 5.
Ooh,
Shin Megami Tensei is a series I've always really loved. I think the music has always been super cool, and it once again continues to be super cool in 5. You end up with a lot of like heavy, deep synths and like really moody kind of almost EDM. Almost
okay.
gets like to the point where it's like you, especially when you get into a fight, it's like wow, this is like I could just bump this and it would be a dance party, right? Like it has this kind of like just like thumping bass and kind of like intense synths going on throughout, and then it once the fights are done, it'll get a little bit more atmospheric and not necessarily super moody, I'd say, but just kind of off and strange. I think they really do a good job of making you feel a little uncomfortable with their music,
Mm,
without it feeling like it's supposed to be scary per se.
okay.
Lots of discords, lots of like things that are not like as listenable to a mass audience, I'd say, but like um really well done and super interesting. Another one where like willing to listen to this music on its own when I want to just like set a nice like atmosphere, especially the combat music. Man, it's so fun. Like I said, it's just bumping and you're just like ready to just like kick some ass. It's so fun.
Amazing.
Yeah, Megaten games, like Persona is super well known for having incredible music as well. It's something that is a big part of its aesthetic. And yeah, they got it from somewhere, right? Like Shin Megami Tensei is where Persona spins off from, and like Shin Megami Tensei has all of that same cool, edgy themes going on, especially in its music.
Nice.
Really, really, really fun one to listen to, especially outside of the game.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I just have a couple more here as
Mhm.
well. I'm gonna shout out Genesis Noir again. This is just some awesome jazz music. I don't know if there's too much to say in terms of it being unique or something, but it just fits the vibe of this game perfectly. It fits the kind of fact that you're kind of somewhat playing a detective.
Right.
It fits the aesthetic. Just some really great jazz music. I'd also kind of shout out Backbone, which kind of has this jazzy music as well, with a little bit more of this kind of ominous, like Blade Runner-y sort of vibes to it as well. But I'll shout out Genesis Noir for being the best jazz music of the year, so to
Nice.
speak.
That's very exciting.
Do you have any more music?
No, no, I've spent my music bag. It's
Okay,
empty.
I will shout out again Outer Wilds. Um, I feel like there isn't maybe tons of music in it, but
Right.
the songs that are in there are great. And I think this one also gets tricky because it's like some of the sound design is what I think about here when I think about
Right.
the sounds of it. But there's at least this one song that plays when you get on the raft in The Stranger and you start cruising.
Mhm.
And at first it's like this kind of new track, and it kind of encapsulates what it feels like to discover something new. And then at some point in the song, it like calls back to the Outer Wilds theme,
Yep.
the main theme from like the main menu and stuff like that. So yeah, great music in there.
Music's
And
so
then
important in Outer Wilds in general, right?
yeah,
Like the fact that they definitely needed that to be a strong part of the
hmm
DLC, and they nailed that.
I think the game in general likes to let you be quiet and alone and just with yourself. And I think that that's a big part of it is like this loneliness. Like this game
Right.
definitely has a ton of that, and so I feel like they follow in suit with that the music too, and let you kind of be with yourself. And in the kind of more horror moments, like it usually is pretty quiet. Which I mean, some horror is like really over the top with like these tritones and things that like make you feel unsettled, but other horror things will just have no music, so that adds a bit to the tension. And I think this game kind of goes
Yeah,
more in that route.
it nails it in those parts. Like you hear the like jingling of the lanterns of
Yeah,
like when
the
you're getting
howl.
close
Oh
to
my god,
yeah,
those
yeah. So
howls.
there's musical moments that aren't necessarily music in those
Yeah.
parts too.
And then I guess the last thing I'd shout out with that is there's you're kind of rather than going through text like you are in the original game of reading these thoughts, you have these slide reels that are showing essentially a slideshow of what has happened, and that's how you're uncovering stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the music that plays in some of those really intense story ones is like, whoa, it's really really good. And it kind of, even though you're just watching like this slideshow of events that are going on, it like, once again, goosebumps, hairs are standing on end. Like it's really intense and emotional. So shout out to Outer
Absolutely.
Wilds.
Yeah. A banger.
And then I think the last one I'll show out here is Inscription again. Inscription as well, I feel like a lot of the time is just quiet, but there is some really great music in there. I think a couple boss fights that really stand out to me
Mm-hmm.
as having music. And then I think this one as well is kind of a cheat because it's like the sound design, but even like the audio cues when you're in the first area and you come across like the angler or something, it's like
Yeah.
dong dong. Like,
Yeah,
it's just like
yeah.
these loud chimes. It's
The-
so good to set the mood. And then it's just like little sprinkles of music. It's not much, but it's enough to like
yeah.
set the mood perfectly.
Oh, if you're talking sound design, I think Inscription like skyrockets its way to
Yeah.
the top easily. Like once again, those like warbled effects when they're
Yeah.
talking is really unsettling. Anytime like it's just dropping chips in the scale, it's just this
Yeah.
perfect little like
Yeah. yeah.
like
I
I don't
love
know.
that.
It does such a great job of just like making you feel like you were just sitting across the table from somebody playing cards for your life.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then just all of the like digitized kind of weird sounds throughout
Yeah.
that game. It's super super well
Yeah.
done.
So I think that's everything on my music list. Let's this
Same,
will be a bit
yeah.
easier, I think, to crack down to a top 5. I mean, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
the easy one here, the home run is Sable, right? That's
Absolutely,
just, that's
absolutely.
on.
Like if we were numbering this, that would be number one.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that.
Now I'm
What
struggling
is another
already.
one for you that's like is there any other slam dunks, so to speak?
I said it once again. I feel like Final Fantasy 14 is cheating, but it also still like the new music that has been released
Yeah.
within Endwalker is still music
Yeah.
I would take outside of that game. And like if I were to give a game best music of all time, it would go to this game. Like
Well, that's
there's
pretty
just
good-
so
big
much.
praise
There's
then.
just so much. Like even if you don't like something, there's something for everyone in
Yeah.
that. Like
I mean, I feel like Final Fantasy has the most iconic music of like all of video games. I mean, maybe like
Yeah.
Mario and Zelda are in their contention, but
but
like
it's in
Final
there.
Fantasy is amazing. So I'm happy to put that in the top 5. I would also really want to put Deathloop in there. I love that there's songs that are contextualized within the world, and then there's just themes that are played just for the player, and then
Absolutely.
just those little sound cues when you end a level and make little when you're cruising around the menu. It's just amazing. So let's put that in there.
So yeah, I 1000% agree with that one. Like Deathloop is 90 or not 90. It's a large part of why the aesthetic works is because the
Right.
music is so fits the aesthetic so well. I'm willing to debate over my next like
Okay.
suggestion.
I
'cause
like what
think
you
probably
said
have-
about Shin Megami Tensei. I also like what you
yeah.
said about Fantasian, but
So
I
neither
think
of those
maybe
I
one
would
of
put in the
those
top
two.
5 though. Neither
Which
of those
one?
I would put in the top 5 over
Really?
some
Okay.
other item.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would put Returnal in this top 5
Hmm.
once again. I think
Okay.
Returnal's music is once again like this like really does make you feel like you are in like the movie Alien or something like that. Like
Ooh,
it
okay.
does such a good job of like film score, video game score. Like I think it does that better than any other game this year for me.
Mhm.
Where it is on all the time. You're constantly listening to music. When it's quiet, it's like, oh God, something bad's about to happen, or you feel like very, very uncomfortable. Like it sets the tone for moments so well is like that it feels like it's a key part of the video game, right? Like
Yeah.
when the music when you feel like the game would be at a serious detriment with the music being gone, I feel like that is definitely something that I want to give it its flowers for, right?
Sure.
Like it's that game wouldn't be nearly as good if the music wasn't setting that uncomfortable tone throughout. And like I'm trying to think of like a Blade Runner or something like that. It has that kind of level of just
Nice.
like really drawn out kind of spooky deep synths and stuff like that going
Nice.
on that just
Okay.
and then
I'm
when
sold. I'll put it on there. I'm
yeah
sold.
Returnal's music is amazing and could fit any film.
Mhm. So for our last pick here, I think from the ones I shouted out, I would put Unpacking, but
Okay.
I am open to another one of your suggestions. As much as I said I've watched a bunch of Guilty Gear, I can't say that the music. I don't know if like these hardcore players that I've been watching like turn the music off or something, but I feel like
Probably.
I haven't
Probably.
connected with that part of the game. But Unpacking would be my pick for my stuff, but I'm okay to put another one of yours on there. What are you thinking?
Well, yeah, like we'll talk about it. So I think if I had to choose another one, it might have Binge Drive, but I think that is a good point. Like I turn the music off in that game when I'm like, it's one of those where like, oh, maybe I just feel like listening to something else, and I turn the music down to 0 and I put other music on, and the game feels just as great.
I gotta say though, if you're turning the music off, Dante, I don't know.
Exactly,
I
that's
think,
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, so
you
maybe
convinced me
Drive
otherwise.
can take a pass because like while I did say it is super fun and enjoyable, there are times when I'm like, all right, I'm done listening to this wacky J metal.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So I'd say from like just incredibly well done music that I'm never gonna actually shut it off for my own enjoyment. Like Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Fantasian both are very high for me. But I like the things you said about Unpacking. You said it's not a lot of music though, whereas like I think these games both have tons of music.
Yeah. Let's give it to one of those. You can pick. I mean, obviously they're your games, so you pick which one you want to see on here.
I think. See, like the only reason I don't want to say Fantasian is because it almost mimics some of the cool parts in Final Fantasy. So it's like a little too similar. Where I think Shin Megami Tensei has like interesting music that is not like anything else we have on this list.
Okay.
I think Fantasian might have better music though.
Okay.
So I think Fantasian might be the winner there. Once again, Nobuo Uematsu like flexing his chops once again to do something super old school and something that's like, I don't know, more in line with the things that he was doing in early on in his career, which I think is, I don't know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. As far as I knew, he was retired. So he came back out for it too.
So here's our list: Sable, Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, Deathloop, Returnal, and Fantasian. And I would say honorable mentions would be Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Unpacking.
Right, absolutely.
Those two. So pretty good list. Without going on too much of a tangent, Halo Infinite, not a contender for you? I didn't play the campaign,
it should be, but it is also one of those that like I play so much multiplayer, and I turn the music off.
Yeah.
I turn the music off to play multiplayer because I want to hear like sound cues and stuff like that.
Course,
and then in the campaign, I think it does a really good job of having those like big swelling orchestral moments, and it does like a really good job of setting up. But like, I think most of the time I am just feeling like it's repeating the bump, 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 bump kind of experience that
old favorites. Yeah.
I've known my whole life. I don't think it's necessarily doing anything incredibly different, despite being done well.
Fair enough. All right, that's a good list. Let's move on. Well, let's shoot to a quick ad break. We'll be right back, and then we'll discuss our last two categories. And we're back. We have two categories left, Dante. We have best levels and best characters.
Yeah.
I have a lot for both of these, so we might be going a while here. Which one do you want to start with? Because I think spoiler-wise, we're going to get a little bit more to the spoiler territory here as a precursor. But yeah, I don't know. Which one do you want to start with out of these two?
Levels I have way more for than characters. I just didn't feel
let's end with levels. Let's end with levels.
Done.
All right, so best characters. I mean, this one kind of speaks for itself. Let's start with you. What is the first best character that you want? And I will say for myself, like I have a couple games where I have like multiple characters from, and so we can just kind of bundle those, not bundle them together, but like shout them all out at once. So for example, like a Deathloop, like maybe I'd shout out multiple characters at once. So
okay, yeah, for sure.
You want to do that too, yeah.
Definitely. So I think starting off the Stoat from Inscription.
Okay.
I think is just incredible, and this is I'm gonna get into some spoilers here immediately.
Let's open up the floor to or open up the door. Right. I don't know what we're opening up the floor.
Yeah.
Let's open up Inscription spoilers. Go play this game if you haven't. Please go play it.
Don't I would go so far as not to cut the content, but like if you haven't played Inscription and we're gonna talk about Inscription, just stop listening and play Inscription instead, and then come back to us.
I would agree. I will say that Inscription is better content than this podcast. Okay, go.
Nice.
Just kidding. Of course, this is the best content out there. But no, Inscription is fantastic. Yeah, the stout. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
The Stoat in Inscription is one of the cards that you get early on, and the story that envelops around him is pretty damn wild. So he is the one kind of like telling you that there are more cards out there, and there are more people who are like sentient. Essentially, it's the only sentient cards you start with. It's like talking to you like crazy, and he's like, "Oh, you should get this person. You should get this person. You should get this person." Then you slowly start to realize that he specifically has much more in store for you than what you're originally thinking. Wow, I just have these like funny characters as cards that I'm going to hang out with. They have ulterior motives, specifically him, and they evolve into becoming different characters that also end up having their own gameplay effects as well. So the Stoat ends up having his own level because you learn quickly that he's a robot, which is a pretty cool thing that happens throughout that first section. Is you start to see these sentient cards transform into their like actual versions of those characters, and his takes the wildest turns out of everyone. He is so snarky, and he's kind of an asshole, but you think that he's on your side, and then throughout you realize maybe not so much. He has something else in mind, and like without going into just dumping and totally spoiling the Stoat. The Stoat is like brings most of the laughs in that game, I'd say. He definitely breaks up some of those like really uncomfortable moments. His level is, I'd say, one of the better ones in the game as well.
Do you want to say Stoat / the name of like the
actual character?
I think we should go that far, right?
Yeah, PO3? That's fair. Yeah, PO3. And like honestly, if you wanted to just keep going, like we can, like most of these characters that hit that like level in Inscription
I'm gonna add
worth shouting out.
I had the Stink Bug on my list.
Okay,
I got it. The Stink Bug.
Yeah, right.
I guess Grimora.
Right. I don't remember their later names as well. That's why I kind of was sticking to their originals.
Yeah. I don't know if I would add the Stunted Wolf, who ends up being Magnificus, I guess. I don't know if I would add him on here, but I would definitely put Leshy. I mean, you got to put Leshy.
Oh, Leshy! Right? Leshy is so good.
Leshy, and then you know what? I'm curious what you think about this, but I want to put Luke Carter on here.
Oh, the Lucky Carter. Absolutely. Absolutely. Are you kidding? So yeah, specifically him, he's your protagonist, right? And the way you learn more about him is just the best FMV. Like, I'm a sucker for FMV in general. Like, any full motion stuff is definitely going to get a kick out of me. And then the fact that this went outside of the game, I don't know if you knew this, that like he had his own YouTube channel that's like fully like
that's cool.
Fleshed out, and like it ended up being his YouTube channel ended up becoming this giant part of this ARG that
cool.
Yeah, there's people like at the end of the ARG ended up getting physical floppy disks of Inscription.
Right. Well, okay, here's another meta thing is I found out afterwards that those scenes were filmed in Vancouver, once again where I live.
Oh, word.
In Stanley Park, which is like a huge, like our huge, I guess, like city park, whatever you want to call it. And like that's where they like did the burying scenes, was in Stanley Park. So to me it became like this whole meta layer where it's like this is happening like really close to where I live too, which is kind of sketchy.
People really went out and were digging up Inscription discs. Like you were in the prime place for it, man. Like damn, if only
I played this game at launch, and maybe I could have been out there with my shovel that I don't have.
Right.
But it still is like pretty cool to find that stuff out. Do you have any other characters from Inscription? I feel like that's kind of the main ones.
I don't remember their names as well, but their like impact is there, like the goo, right? Like who was the goo? That was someone, I'm assuming.
I don't think it was one of like the 4 like creator people. Because he's like in the original game as well as just like a goo in like the, I guess, pipes, and then he's just the goo in the cabin. And I forget what he is doing in the.
Oh wait, isn't he the wizard?
No, I'm pretty sure. I thought it was the stunted wolf was the wizard because he has one eye. The stunted wolf is one eye, and so does
Right.
Magnificus. And that one, I guess, makes like I wonder if that card evolves over time because like by the time I got the stunted wolf, obviously that was the last like run I did, so I
Yeah.
didn't see him. Like I wonder if he evolves more, but he also is kind of shaggy and stuff and looks like the just like fern, whatever that
Right,
Magnificus like
right, right,
action
right,
is.
right. That is true. That is. Oh, there's pictures of Magnificus hugging the goo, so they
Okay,
have some sort of relationship, and I'm
right,
just
like
not
maybe the
100
goo
percent
is
sure
like
what it is.
Magnificus's creation or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, like just in general, every single character that they introduce in Inscription is a wild ride, and they take you for like just this crazy, they take you down a crazy road that you
Mm-hmm.
just don't expect to be a part of at all, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think the Stoat slash PO3 is the person driving that
Mm-hmm.
that train. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was why the Stoat specifically was
Yeah.
my call out.
That's a good one. I think Stinkbug was the first one that came to mind for me because in that when you're playing that first game, the Stoat's always like bad play, misplay, or that was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
play. He's
yeah.
just criticizing your moves, and
Exactly.
I love that no matter what you do, the Stinkbug's like, oh, that was a masterful play. Like he's
Yeah.
just like cheering you on. So I guess I
Yeah,
like became
that's
close
true.
to the Stinkbug. And then also just like the weirdness of like the stink bug slowly becoming like putting makeup on and like turning into a woman. It's like what's going on?
Yeah, it is very, very weird. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that the evolution, especially in the first act, the evolution of those cards is something else. You just like are starting to think like, why is this happening? What is going on here? Like when the stink or when the Stoat started to, his face started to get wide, I was like, oh well, I smashed him with the blocks to give him more powers, more than one. So maybe that's just like an effect of that. That's really silly.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, no, that is not the reason that happened at all. He's literally just evolving into his next form. Um,
That's funny. I thought he like ate my death card, and that's why his face was all rectangular.
right,
That's so
yeah,
funny.
like they give you they you don't expect to go anywhere else with it.
Yeah.
So the frame at which you are like thinking about what's happening is like skewed drastically, and I think it does so many good jobs of
Hmm.
like just throwing red herrings out there with these characters as well and making you think something else is happening that's not quite happening.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, I want to talk about Deathloop, as I just
Hmm.
mentioned.
Hmm.
I think there's a few here. I mean, you got to shout out Colt. You
Yep,
got to shout out Juliana.
Juliana,
Um,
absolutely.
for me, I want to shout out Charlie. He was like my favorite of the Visionaries, I think. And then I also maybe want to shout out Wenji, Dr. Wenji Evans.
Wenji is cool. Wenji's
Yeah.
very cool.
I like all the characters in this game. Like I honestly would consider like I'd put more on there, but I think for me, that's kind of like the ones that really stood out to me as like
I would love to throw
memorable
Alexis on
arcane
here.
characters that I'm going to think about for years to come. Sorry, what was
Yeah,
the what was
throw
that?
Alexis on there.
Okay.
Alexis is the wolf. He's the one that you're crashing his party,
Yeah.
and he just has a lot of great little things that can happen that make him just extra pissed off in his environment. That's like very funny to listen to what he says when you mess with him.
Mm-hmm. I think I spelled his name. I spelled it
Oh, that's
wrong.
right. That's right. That's
I
right.
spelled it wrong first, and then I corrected myself.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, like Colt, honestly, might be my favorite
Hmm?
Arcane Studios character ever. Like
Ooh,
I love the performance. I think it's the most like hearty performance out of any of the characters
yeah,
they've done
I'd
before.
agree.
I think like he's just so cool. I think he's funny. Like I was just laughing frequently. I like that you are playing along with him and like uncovering this stuff, and a lot of his reactions like are more animated reactions of like I was having as a player.
Yeah.
Um, Juliana, same thing. Amazing performance.
Mhm.
The dynamic she has with Colt is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So much fun. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if we need to spoil much to talk about Deathloop. I don't know how you feel. Like right now, at least
I,
about like the story, like ending story stuff. I don't know.
yeah, like I I think their ending story might take points away from them a little bit
Okay,
for me personally. But that's
that's
about as
fair.
far as I will go. Their
Sure.
relationship takes a turn that I did not expect, and I don't know if I enjoyed.
Yeah.
But I do think their banter throughout is hilarious
Hmm.
and like so cleverly written that like it more than makes up for a little misstep
Hmm.
near the end for me.
And the fact that it's like both really interesting from a gameplay perspective
Mhm.
and then a story perspective, yeah, is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. They're some of the best written characters. Like as far as their once again, just their banter back and forth is just
Mm-hmm.
so impressive, and like you can hear the frustration in Colt's voice, but also the like lack of care and trying to like
Right.
prove to her that it's all like he's gonna take care of it no matter what. It's not a big deal. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's got this. Where Juliana's like, we've done this. I'm so sick of this. Like, dude, like, can we just get over this already? And but also being very unwilling to tell him why, because she's like, it doesn't even make a difference. I just can't wait to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
The just like angst and frustration that Juliana has with Colt, while Colt has this like I don't know, this like this heroic stance to the
Yeah.
fact that he's going to be able to like take care of
Yeah.
whatever she throws at him. um they're both stellar. They're both stellar
Mm-hmm.
and super likable. Like you go into it like Juliana is your main antagonist, but like there's times when I just like her more than Colt, or
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. Like,
And then
and it's
obviously
cool
you
because you get to
can
play
play
as
as
both.
her as
Yeah,
well. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's cool.
exactly. So they make it worth it. You're like, man, I really like this Juliana character. I wish I could play her, and it's like, oh, I can.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. To shout out these other ones, I think Charlie is fun just because he is a game developer, and I feel like in some ways the developers used his character to like talk about some of their own thoughts about like making
Yeah.
games or something like that. And I like that he's like really good at it too. There's one like audio log where he's talking about it was like all right the first time he won a Game of the Year award, and then he won like 5 more, and like he's just such a fun character. And then he has like
Yeah.
the song that he sings to Fio, which is really fun. Like one of my favorite songs of the year, as we talked about. So I really like Charlie, and he's kind of like he's kind of goofy and like a bit neurotic too. And then he also
All
like
of
is
them.
responsible for some of the best set pieces. You know, he
Yeah.
kind of has like this D&D campaign, this
Yep.
kind of real life D&D campaign. He has like this training bunker in the bottom of Updom, and then he kind of makes this horror house in Carl's Bay as
Up
well. So
top. Yeah.
he kind of has his influence all over the place. And to me, he was like the visionary that had the most heart, and the one that I found the most like had the most layers to him.
Fair. That is, yeah, I'd actually agree. Like, I think you get an opportunity to dig into his story a little bit further than you can in the other ones, but he's also the first person you interact with, and you interact with him more, I think,
Mm-hmm.
than a lot of the other visionaries. Like, some of those you finish their story and you don't really have to do much with them again, but I feel like I was just like killing Charlie a lot.
Yeah.
So I got to learn more about him, and him having the depth with his like little like his the relationship he was having with that other
Yeah.
character as well. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
end up going a little deeper with him. I like Charlie a lot. And in the same sense that I think Alexis is maybe not as you don't interact with him as much, but man, when you do, he is so
Yeah.
boisterous and loud and so full of himself. And it
You
is
love to
just
hate him.
hilarious. Yeah, you just love to hate him. He's the perfect kind of like person who's like, I cannot wait to kill this dude.
Mm-hmm.
So like when my favorite part is like, or some of my favorite parts is when you're actually like interacting with ways to figure out who Alexis is, because at his party everyone's wearing masks. So
Mm-hmm.
like they make his personality larger than life there for a reason, so you actually know who you're trying to kill. And like whether or not you're messing with his DJ equipment and setting up a set that's like supposedly better than anything he's ever done,
Right. Right.
or just something as simple as like going down below and messing with his favorite chocolate beer, because that's the only beer he likes. And then when the taps are out, he's like screaming at everyone in the party about who drank the last of his beer, getting like just super frustrated with the crowd around him at this party that he set up. And then in the audio logs, just looking at how many people he's pissed off, or the like over the time that he's trying to get everybody to come to his party and no one wants to fucking go because they all hate him and find him to be super annoying. They sell it. He's annoying as hell and he's the worst. And like, I love that he is the worst.
I love when you have the like the little statue, the talking statue of him, and you have to just like carry it through this level where he's just like just being super annoying and full of himself.
He's just man, a absolute pain, but in the best way.
Mm-hmm. And then for Wenji Evans, I think she's just like fun from like a gameplay perspective. She's the character that clones herself, so you have to kill her like 10 times. But it's also fun to just hear her banter with herself, coming up with these solutions to problems. And like from a story perspective, like she's maybe one of the most important people for the loop and stuff. So you get a lot of good exposition through her character as well, and through like reading her diary logs and and listening to her audio logs and stuff. So I think she was a really fun character as well. And like maybe the most interesting from a gameplay perspective, but then also from a story perspective. So she's definitely up there as well with the other visionaries for me. And I mean, I like them all. I like Frank Spicer. I like Fia.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe the one I don't care for so much is like, and he's actually the one I can't remember the name, the mad scientist guy.
Oh yeah, I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, I feel like he has kind of maybe the least intrigue
Like
to his
yeah,
character.
you find his computer, and then it's like most of the like engagement you have with that character at that point.
Yeah.
Like you literally just turn the invisibility off on his computer. Like I feel like I spent the least amount of time in his level.
Yeah, and I mean the first time I fought him was really fun as he's like
Fia as well a little bit.
I thought he was teleporting around, but he's actually just going invisible and stuff. And
yeah,
I mean it's cool, but he's definitely at the bottom of the barrel in what is a game that has a ton of amazing characters. So not to take away from him.
Literally every single character in that game is phenomenal.
And then I don't know, would you shout any out? Would there be like there's one character that's really interesting who's like kind of also aware of the loop, but like I think to me those would be like the shout outs I would give for this game.
Yeah. The other characters are strong side story or side characters. Like, well, no, who's setting up the little challenges for you too? Isn't that also Alexis?
I think that was.
Or is that Charlie?
That was Charlie, I think.
Okay, yeah. So like him screaming through these like speakers that are in these boxes, just trying to intimidate you into doing his silly little challenges. Like I think Charlie does have like a lot of strengths behind him over the rest of the visionaries.
All right. Do you want to shout out another game or individual character?
Yeah, mine's easy because it's this one's easy because it is an individual character, and it's something I've talked about at length already. Is Selene from Returnal? So it's Selene. And oh my gosh, her story is all told through her own perspectives, and like so she's constantly narrating what she's thinking and what she's going through and the trauma that she's dealing with. You throughout that game are struggling to understand if she is in a loop or if she is in some sort of psychosis. And I don't know that you ever really figure that out. Spoilers. But the way that they move you through and acknowledge her trauma is unsettling and sad and very difficult to hear, but in a way that is like written incredibly, especially for a developer who has never had to write a character before. Housemark is, as far as I know, really only done these arcadey games, and then they wrote a character that is like one of the best characters I've ever experienced in a video game. She is consistently being beaten down and tortured and like in this like mentally and physically, and there are moments throughout that game where I've never felt so bad for a character. I'm just like, oh my god, I just want her to get out of this. Like I feel so sad for her. And they loop after loop, you learn more and more and more about what's going on with her, and throughout she begins to feel like she's becoming crazier and crazier throughout as well, which is like the first time in a loop mechanic that like you really feel like, oh yeah, if I was in this position, I also would be going insane. Like I've died what may seem like millions of times. It like, and you can see like, hear audio logs from Selene's that may be in the future, maybe in the past, you're not even sure. But you listen to her and she's cracking. She's like falling apart at the seams, and she's starting to sound like she is losing like all stability in a way that is terrifying. And you're like, oh my god, I'm this character, what's going to happen to me? So it creates this mystery as well around like what is truly going on with her, and why is she going crazy? Is it because she's been in this loop forever, or is she in this loop because she's crazy? Like it does some really, really interesting stuff with Selene. Selene is also incredibly well voice acted, gives off this what's her name? I'm not gonna think of it. There's an actress, Tilda Swinton. She gives off this like Tilda Swinton energy that is like stoic and also like has like emotional scarring as well. Like you can tell that she's like, despite being this like heroic figure and handling the challenges that are put in front of her, she's also in pain and struggling, and it's all very effective. Celine's might be my favorite character of the entire year.
That's quite the argument. I feel like she might be I mean,
she's
Returnal's
a contender.
Returnal's already making its appearance, but I feel like it might top 5 again. Let me shout out Okay, so this is going to be a weird one. This is going to be a weird shout out. I'm going to shout out a character named Bron Brock
nice.
from
I love his
Wildermyth.
name. Oh, cool. This is one of your characters.
Yeah, so the way Wildermyth works is essentially it's like a D&D campaign. It's like randomly rolls characters for you, or you can like put in names and stats and whatnot if you want to, but I just kind of let the game create these weird characters for me. So you might be thinking, like, well, what was this guy doing on this list? Like, no one's going to know who Bron Brock is except for me. But I fell in love with this character. He was, he started out in my party. I had 2 characters in my party at the beginning. I think it was 2. Maybe it was 3. If I didn't, I'd get the 3rd one right away. But anyway, he was in my party from the very beginning, and there was kind of someone else in my party who was kind of the leader of the crew and kind of smarter, thought through decisions more, whereas Bron Brock would just go into scenarios without really thinking about them. He was maybe a bit of an airhead, a little clueless at times, but then over time, he really developed into being someone who he ended up being like an archer, and he would think about situations before he would head straight in. Over time, like that person who led my party, she died, and so Bron Brock kind of took over as the leader of the group. And then in the way the game works is like you go through, you kind of have a goal, which will take a few battles to get through, and then you go into like this kind of waiting period, and the game kind of skips forward a few years. So I saw Bron Brock like from when he was like a young 20-something idiot to when he was like an old man who had like all this prestige and like all this legacy to him from fighting all these battles over the years. He went through like changes. Like he at one point almost died. He lost his arm, so for the rest of the campaign, he just had a hook for an arm.
Armless character. See, this is so cool. That's Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, no. It fueled back into the character because like that hook like became like I could use that for additional abilities that no other characters had. So yeah, he's a character that grew in a way that like over the course of decades that no other game can really do that, and it worked. I mean, it's like randomly or procedurally generated whatever content in terms of like story beats or character dialogue and stuff. But Bron Brock is one of my favorite characters of the year. I love him so much. He's yeah. He means something special to me. A character that I didn't care about much at first, but is like, oh man, I'm gonna miss this guy when I move into my next campaign, and he's in retirement, and maybe he's died of old age or something like that. But I loved him so much.
See, that's exactly why Wildermyth was in one of those games that I was like, man, I really wanted to play that. Every time I've heard somebody speak about that game, I'm like, you just talked about a character at length, like they were just this impressively well-written thing, and it was just this random combination of things that happened to you alone in your story. Like,
one more thing about Bron Brock. He had a love interest early on in his life, in his 20s, in his early years, and she ended up dying in a really sad battle. And then he kind of remembered her, and like he never ended up finding someone else. He ended up living a single life, but like he had like this whole love situation too. Like, such a great game.
That seems so cool. Like, it's just like, how can you flesh out a character so strongly, and he's literally just around for like 4 or 5 hours, and you never see him again?
Yeah,
so good.
Wildermyth. I could have shouted out a couple more characters, but I feel like Bron Brock was kind of my he was my highlight, so I shouted him out there.
I love his name too. He's definitely fitting for the singular Wildermyth shout out. My next one this year is Samus.
Okay.
I think they characterized Samus better in Metroid Dread than they have ever. She is so over this shit. She is so clearly over this shit. Like, she's like, I've done this so many times. Like, she walks in to fight enemies she's seen in the past, and she's just like already charging her beam up.
Yeah.
Like, she's just like so they characterize her as such a badass in a way that like before she was just this like this character with no emotion really. And in a way now she has more than she has ever. And I don't know if that's necessarily saying something because of how she's been portrayed in the past versus how she's being portrayed now, or if it is just because she's standing out as like this just like clear cut kick ass woman. Like there's moments where you feel real fear from her, like the Emmys in that game definitely are something that like scare her because she knows that there's nothing that she can do about it. And then the main villain in that game too, there's a moment where he's holding her and you can see her like freaking out, like she always has an answer to everything. And then there's a moment where you clearly realize she's stressing and like she thinks she's going to die, and you feel that impact in that moment. A really, really incredible job of giving a character very little voice, but letting her actions speak for her. They did a great job of making Samus feel like a character I would like, can't wait to be again. Whereas before she was just like this person who was thrown into this cool environment, and I was more interested in the world, where now I was actually more interested in what was happening to her. So Samus kicked ass this time around.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't played every Metroid game. I've played, maybe like 3 or 4 of them or something like that. So I haven't seen her whole story, but I think to me this is the one where she had the most character to her. So
absolutely.
I'll agree with that for sure. Okay, next I want to shout out some Resident Evil Village characters.
Let's go.
I had 4 on my list. Do I want to put them all on here? I think I might.
Let them ride. Yeah.
I'm gonna start with the Duke. I really like the Duke. He's like the one safe zone in the whole game, so it feels like you just feel this comfort and warmth when you're around him, even though he's like grotesque and very
giant man,
very strange. But yeah, whenever you like come back to him, or like he comes up in a surprising place, you're like, oh, it's you again.
The homie.
I love his just the voice acting for him. When he's like, oh, come select my wares. I don't even know what he says, but like, he's just such a fun character. And visually he's very intimidating and intense, but is very unique in a way as well. I love the Duke.
I was gonna say you spend as much time waiting for the other foot to drop with him as you do feeling like you're safe with him. Like you're like, oh yeah, okay, I get to walk in this room and like, holy crap, he's here, thank God. But then you're also like, when's the time you're gonna like turn, like there's gonna be the heel turn and you're actually going to be like, I was the secret enemy all along.
I definitely felt that as well.
Yeah.
The other characters, so I'm gonna shout out Heisenberg. I think it seems like from what I've heard from other people, like they don't like this character. I think he's like cheesy or something, but I totally embraced the cheese of the character, and I liked how over the top he was. You mentioned Nick Cage. I think that's like an apt comparison. Like if they did a live action movie of this, I think that would be some great casting. I don't know if he visually fits it, but throw some.
They can make it happen.
They can make it happen. And I think just from a boss perspective, like a opposing force perspective, he also is like the scariest in terms of he just has these magical powers. He can fling metal across the room. Yeah, he has this massive
Magneto, essentially.
Yeah. He is. So I love Heisenberg. I think he ended up being my favorite villain in the game. And I think it's a game that really prides itself on having some memorable villains. And for me, he stood out the most. And I also really liked his level. You see him other points in the game, but he has like one level that's kind of dedicated to him. And it's not like he's in every room in that level or anything, but I think that was a pretty cool level as well that led up to this pretty epic boss fight with him, which is have you gotten to his
That's where I'm at. We talked about the fact that I have not beaten RE8 yet, and I'm at the very end. I am literally in the Heisenberg moment.
Okay. So I won't say what his boss fight is, but it's weird. It's wild. It's pretty strange. Okay, so I'll just...
Me and my girlfriend gotta wrap that up. We've been playing that game together.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. It's very weird, but it's it's fun. I think the internet would be mad at us if we didn't shout out Lady Dimitrescu.
Yeah, she is...
Let me try and spell her name. I do have it on my other screen,
I have it. It's Dimitrescu, right? Dimitrescu?
So I need to take out this S. Dimitrescu, like that.
Right? I think so. Okay. Let me double check as well.
Speaking on this character, I mean, visually, like obviously like a hot, tall vampire lady, that's cool. But I also think it is like a unique... It is a unique design as well. I love like her long hat. I love that she kind of has like Wolverine's claws.
Right.
I will say that this character let me down a bit, and I think it's only because I think after they like showed her off in trailers, they realized that the internet really liked her, and then they started showing a lot of her. And I feel like every single scene she's in is like shown in trailers, and so I felt like
Yeah.
by the time I got to the game, I had kind of seen everything the character had to offer, and it's a good performance and all, but also like
Mm.
slight spoilers, like she's not in it a lot.
That's the
So
problem. Yeah, they showed so much of it, and
yeah,
she ended up being in the game for like 3 hours, maybe.
yeah. So maybe a bit of a letdown, but I still think it was a successful character. And I think if they were to do like a prequel or some Resident Evil things, she could still be alive out there.
Yeah.
I feel like they could do more with the character. But I don't know. I think she was still pretty successful for being like the first kind of major boss of the game or major area.
Yeah, they do a really good job of I think her strengths lie in that level, which we'll get to that. That's definitely an incredible set piece for that
Mm-hmm.
game.
Yeah.
But like specifically when she changes, I think is a really like grotesque,
Yeah.
disgusting moment that is pretty effective.
Yeah.
So I like her
Very
for
much
that
so.
as well. But man, it is just nice to have that kind of that early Nemesis experience after the previous Resident Evil games, that being such a strong part of them, and her just
Right.
being the hot version of that is pretty hilarious. And it's
Yeah.
this giant, beautiful woman just like stomping around this castle is just
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. It is super effective. And then when you see her, she is scary.
Yeah.
She's ready to ruin your day in a heartbeat. So like I think she does a good job of making you feel tense in a way
Yeah.
that might actually be lost in later parts of the game.
Yeah, and I think another good part too that like you don't get later on is that just like her dynamic with other characters is interesting, particularly Heisenberg and her. I
Yeah,
love their dynamic, how it's
yeah,
kind of
they hate each other.
they're kind
It's
of
like,
fighting for the B mom's favorite essentially is
yeah,
what's going on, and I really like their dynamic, and they definitely they hate each other so much, and so when you don't really have that tension anymore, maybe sucks a little life out of the game, but
mm.
she's still successful, and then I don't even know if I'm gonna keep him on here. I might just write it for a second, but Moreau, who is kind of like the gross fish dude that you fight in the
Yeah.
swamp area. Um, I just thought he was really funny. I just like couldn't help but I don't. He's probably supposed to be scary in some ways, but I just couldn't help myself
No,
but
he's
laugh.
kind of funny and also like depressing in a
Yeah,
weird way. Like you just
yeah,
know that he's like this gross monster, and he like is aware of his grotesqueness and doesn't
uh-huh.
feel as like strong of a part of the family, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's like maybe has to do more work to impress mom than Heisenberg and Lady Dimitrescu do.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, he's a sad character in a way as well.
yeah. I think he's below these other three for me, but still, I think he's worth a shout out. I thought he was
Yeah.
fun. Do you have any other Resident Evil
Beneviento,
characters?
I also really,
Okay.
really dug. I thought Beneviento was like this, um, just off-putting character. This is the character that you go into his castle or his home essentially, and it's these dolls
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, and the way that he is speaking to you is through one of these dolls that is got this like Saw like experience to it where he just pops up randomly and you're just like watching this chattering doll talk, and it's just very uncomfortable and also
Yeah.
hilarious in a weird way. And then you get later on into that level and there's just like you realize there's all these experiments being done below his home, and some of these.
I will say I'm pretty sure it's Donna Beneviento. And I think she's a woman. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
And
maybe.
I think that's maybe something to say about the character is that she very much
Oh, it is
hides
Donna. It is Donna.
behind
You're right. Well,
she
yeah,
very much
she's
hides
speaking.
behind the dolls, and you don't really interact with her at all.
Yeah, you
So
interact with
yeah,
the doll pretty much exclusively,
yeah,
and the doll is just this like hilarious and terrifying
very
character.
creepy. Yeah,
Yeah, I thought it was that the doll alone in this like little wedding dress was just such
yeah,
a fun
playing
a
hide and go
fun
seek.
character
Yeah,
outside of like where maybe lines up with like the Duke as being like kind of whimsy, have like a little bit of
mm-hmm.
whimsy to it, where some of the other characters are very like a little more serious in their
Yeah,
motives. The doll is like cackling and crazy,
yeah,
and yeah, it's really really fun.
yeah. Those are my Resident Evil shout outs. Do you guys have any more, or do you want to go on to your next game here?
No, Rose. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I mean, there's some rows in there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Let me find the parts of my dead baby.
Yeah, the pudgy baby, very
Yeah.
very weird looking baby. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on there.
Yeah, no, that's a good list for me for Resident Evil. I think they all kick ass. I absolutely hated forgetting his name, the main character.
Oh my God, what is his name?
Ethan.
Ethan, yeah.
I couldn't stand Ethan in this game with so many amazing characters. Surprising that the main protagonist, I was like, shut up, stop talking constantly. Anytime he spoke, I was like, just please don't do that anymore.
I don't blame you at all, but there's something about Resident Evil that's like obviously scary and serious at times, but it also is so cheesy. And like I really embrace the cheese factor, and I love him for like the cheesiness. So
yeah,
I still like the character, but obviously he wasn't on here with the rest of these guys, so he's definitely below. But I had fun playing as Ethan in this game.
Fair.
And his poor hands too. Oh my
Dude,
God.
I wanted to say that so bad. I'm just like, I can't believe this man literally just kind of like put his hand back on and then
like
poured some liquid on it. He just keeps pouring this mystery fluid on him, and it just like puts him right back to normal.
He should have like pulled a Braun Brock and like just put a hook on his hand and like used that. It would have helped him too, I'm sure.
Seriously. Yeah. Braun Brock, better protagonist than Ethan, confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, easily. What else you got? Any other
all right. I wanted to shout out Grandma the Witch of the Urns again. I think she has a cool little story, a very contained story within Death's Door. She is trying to preserve her loved ones within ceramic, to the point that she is taking it way too far, and she is essentially turning these people into pots against their will, and her motivation is like, well, I'm protecting my family, I'm saving everyone, but a pretty skewed logic there, considering pots I'd consider more fragile than people, but I think her idea there is they can live forever this way. So I just thought she was like incredibly interesting, and she spends the entire time you're in her dungeon just telling you to go away. And you're just like, nope, I'm gonna jaunt farther into your dungeon, miss. So sorry, you clearly want me to leave. You're asking nicely most of the time, but fuck it, I don't care, I'm going anyway. And then you destroy her and you realize her motivations, and you're like, wow, that was pure at the end of the day, and maybe this could have been handled through a conversation, but instead I beat her ass.
Nice.
A fun character, one of the standouts, I think, from Death's Door.
And visually, she's cool.
A fun look too. Like she has this cool like Tim Burton thing going on as well.
Okay, I have a few more here. Let's shout out, and I don't really want to do too many spoilers on this. Have you played, or do you know it Before Your Eyes? Have you played or heard?
I am aware of this game. I have not played it yet. I really want to play it. Just for people who are not familiar, Before Your Eyes is a game where you are seeing your life play out, and you have a webcam hooked up, and it is tracking your blinking, and you get to be in a moment as long as you can keep your eyes open. And apparently it's really sad. Well, you played it, you know more about it than I do, but I understand the premise, and I'm excited as hell to play this. Definitely, for my sake, please dance around spoilers on this one.
Yeah, I don't really want to say too much about. I'll talk about it maybe a bit later on or something. But Before Your Eyes, you captured it perfectly. It's you're seeing a flash of your life before your eyes, and so maybe for the sake of spoilers, I will not put anything on here. I'm okay with that actually. I did want to shout out a couple characters, but I don't know if I would fight for them for top 5, to be honest. So I think I'll leave them off, but just know that there's a couple characters in here that really stuck out to me. I won't. Well, actually, I'll spoil one. I'll just say your mom in the game.
Okay.
Really stood out to me. There's another character that maybe is a bit more spoilery, even though you encounter them pretty early on. But I won't do too many more spoilers. But really cool game. It's people always talk about that gimmick of the webcam, but it truly uses that idea in a very interesting way that facilitates the story in just like a way that no other game could have possibly done.
Right.
And it's not just like some fun gimmick. It's really cool. Like someone could use that idea and make like a WarioWare kind of game where they're, you do like mini games or something, but instead they made a really impactful story, and it works super well. So yeah, shout outs to a couple of those characters and the story in general. But yeah, we'll leave it off the list for the sake of spoilers.
I've heard it's a tearjerker for multiple reasons.
Mhm.
One, your eyes are strained as hell, and then two, it's
Yeah.
actually a sad story.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So maybe instead, I don't really have
Yeah,
too
you can
much.
put the mom on. You can put the mom on. Right?
Okay, I'll put the mom. I'll put the mom. Her name is Elle, so I'll just write mom slash
Gotcha.
L. Okay, you go ahead then. You go ahead with
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah, this is my last one that I can remember right now. Last time I said that, I had like 30 more to go. But Living Way from Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker.
What
Living
an
Way.
interesting name.
Yeah, so all of the ways. So there's all types of these. This is gonna sound like I just went into a fugue state, and I'm just gonna start like vomiting out weird information. So you are on the moon. And on the moon, there is a group of small rabbit people that are, if you are familiar with earlier Final Fantasies, there's the naming way characters that will change your name. They've kind of taken those and created their entire own race in Final Fantasy XIV. These little rabbits, they're adorable, and all of their names are based on their tasks. So there's Cooking Way, there's Singing Way, you know what I mean, essentially.
Yeah.
And Living Way is a character who has the largest job of all, and he's guiding all of the rest of these really, really silly characters. And their purpose is to create Final Fantasy XIV spoilers, by the way. I know some people are getting into Endwalker. This is about the middle point. So there you learn, because the world is essentially ending, that they have created a vessel out of the moon to take humanity elsewhere, and their entire job is to set up this moon to be as livable for the races that are on Earth, or that game's version of Earth. And they didn't get it quite right, which is part of why I think these characters are so funny. They're like pretty elusive and working in the background to try and make sure that everything happens properly. But the things that they're trying to do to make sure it works properly are all of their food is now carrot based. Like everything, all of the plants aren't quite what plants is supposed to look like, and it's all directed by Living Way, and Living Way is just like doing his absolute best, but clearly fucking it up at every single turn. He is so incredibly likable, and it's a nice moment in the middle of a otherwise pretty heavy story. For him to just be this like, I don't know, this like moment of comedy within something that's fairly heavy. He's super funny. He has good intentions, but he's not doing a very good job. And he's leading about 100 other people down the same road. Just a great character, super fun to look at. Here, I'll shoot you a quick pic of Living Way. So, because I just think he is just the most adorable little bun. I love him. We love him
a
so
good
much.
Flawed character. It sounds like a very flawed character.
Exactly. He is trying his best. Here, I'm just gonna copy it into our Discord real quick. Maybe you can post a little picture of my favorite buns from this year.
Oh, very cute.
Just so adorable.
Let's bring that over here.
There they go.
The Ways. So which one's Living Way?
He's the brown one.
This one.
Yeah. I guess they're the brown.
I guess I didn't expect them to be that cute.
They're super adorable, and they're hilarious, and they live on the moon, and they run a moon spaceship. Like, they're really capable.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
But just missing the mark occasionally.
Right. I will say, in the game that takes place on the moon, Spelunky 2. Okay.
Right.
Next, I'm gonna shout out this game. I actually do have a background for it, even though we haven't talked about it yet. It's called Lake. Which it's a smaller indie game. This one as well had performance issues, which is why I didn't see it to the end. But you play as this character named Meredith, and essentially she's just come back to like this small town that she grew up in after being in like the big city for a while, and you're kind of seeing like some of the relationships that she used to have and how they've faded over time as she didn't keep in touch at all. and she's kind of getting back in touch with who she was when she was younger, and back in this town that she grew up in. And she's a fun character. It's well acted. It's a decent game. It didn't really. I think the performance is what kept me from like going to see like the end of the story, but I was having fun with it for what it was.
Right.
And yeah, it's just a very like lo-fi game as well. You're just delivering packages around this town. There's not even a run button. Like you just walk around, you drive your little van. It's a very simplistic. I think it's also on Game Pass, so you
cool.
can check it out if you
Another
want.
one.
I think so. I think I played it on Game Pass. Should probably confirm that, but I can't remember.
Check it right now. I'll let you know.
As for myself, I think that's more or less it. Like
PC.
I.
No, it is. It is.
Nice.
It's on Game Pass.
Cool. I had a couple shoutouts. Like I think Hitman 3 is like the best Hitman story in the trilogy, and so like Agent 47 and Diana Burnwood like have some fun dynamic there. And then Sable, I like the character of Sable. They don't really. I don't know if they have like the depth to put them on this list necessarily,
Right.
but some shoutouts there. But do you have any other characters for
not standouts. No, I don't think I have any that like really blew me away this year.
Okay.
I think there are good like casts, right? But like I think they come together as a whole versus those independent characters really standing out.
Okay. All right, so let's crack this down to a top 5 then. I think the way I've organized this list is that there are a bunch of characters like single nominations from games, and then there's a bunch for Inscription, a bunch for Deathloop, and a bunch for Resident Evil. So maybe it's fair that we pick one from each of those 3 games that has a few, and then we can add a couple more from our other lists. Is that
absolutely
pretty good?
That's perfect.
So you shout out the Stout /PO3 for Inscription. I'd be down to lock him, or I mean, I also like Stinkbug. I also would consider putting Leshy on there. I feel like maybe one of those three
or Luke. Man, like I'd go Stoat or PO3 and Lucky Carter as like strong contenders from this list. I think he is he gets the most like personalization, I'd say, outside of the game, which is like really, really cool. And like those are huge, impactful moments. And you feel for him. He's a little dorky, but I think it's intentional. Like, so it's a little on the nose. Whereas like I think Stoat is just like in general like a better written character throughout the entire game.
Right. Let's put the Stoat. I think Stoat's a good one. A lot to the character, and I think a good representation of why we love the characters in this game.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
When it comes to Deathloop, I mean, I feel like you got to go Colt or Juliana. I would go Colt if I'm picking one, but I would honestly even make a case for both Colt and Juliana on this top 5.
Yeah.
Like, I think their dynamic is so good. They both have tons of content. Voice acting is fantastic. They're funny.
So much.
Yeah.
There must have been so much dialogue written for both of them. I don't think I heard. I didn't hear repeat dialogue until the very, very, very end of the game.
Yeah, it took
like after 40 or so hours of playing, I didn't hear repeat content at all. And it might have, the reason I heard repeat content might have honestly being like doing a minor amount of saves coming that I figured out you could do in that game.
Oh, okay.
So I probably heard the same dialogue multiple times near the end because I figured out that I could reload a save essentially.
Yeah.
So I'd say it would be okay to give it to both of them.
Yeah.
Personally.
I'm glad you feel that way because
they're both amazing. They're both amazing.
Okay, well, we'll start with that for now, and let's move down the list. Resident Evil. So I guess I'm not as dead set on having to include one of these, even though we did shout out 5 characters from the game. But is there one that stands out to you, and do you feel like you'd want one of these characters over some of your other suggestions?
I was surprised to hear that you said people had problems with him because I think Heisenberg stole the show for me in that game. Anytime he was on screen, I was laughing maniacally. I thought he was just hilarious and so just like deadpan in his delivery and just like I don't know. He definitely gave me Nicolas Cage energy, which is like I love that shit. I eat it up. I think he is just equal part. Like he's the best actor and the worst actor at the same time, and somehow that is perfection. And Heisenberg just does a lot of that, which I don't know. I was just happy to see it. I thought he was just hilarious and menacing at the same time. He's a scary guy. Like I didn't want to be stuck in a room with him necessarily.
And yeah, I like that. I think that dynamic works so well because there are points in the game where he seems like your lifeline. He seems like your friend, and he's trying to help you out or something like that. So then it like turns, and then he's definitely against you. So crossing that line, I think, is what gives him a little bit more dynamic than the rest of these
Yeah.
characters who are they just want you dead. Or I mean, Duke
Yeah.
just wants to help you out and whatnot. But
Right.
yeah, I think Heisenberg's a good lock there.
All right. I feel
So
really strongly about one of these.
if
Clearly.
that's the case, we have a few left here. I think I'll leave it to you because Brombrock is a weird personal one where no one else in the world
Will
knows who Brombrock
understand.
is.
Right.
So I'm okay for him to be like honorable mention as one of my favorite characters of the year, but like I can't put him on a list of the best characters from video games in this year. So I'll leave
Okay.
it to you. Who do you want as the last pick for our best characters here?
It's Celine all day. Celine,
All
I
right.
think, beats the rest of the top 5 for me as
Ooh,
well. Like Celine's character arc
declarative.
is sad. It's a really, really emotional ride, and it's harrowing, and it really just it makes you it that is one of those games that like is really messed up about how depressing the story and the character that they've put in front of you, and then also making that game brutally hard. It is not a comfortable place to be sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it really puts you in a dark spot, and it's so effective. It's just so effective, and her story is
Yeah, you definitely
really
sold me
upsetting.
just with your first description, and
Yeah.
it seems like the character on this list that goes through the most variance in terms of what they've had to go through. And then I think even just like it sounds like from the player's perspective, you're just trying to figure out what's going on. Also, is like this mystery of like where exactly has she been? Where is she now? And I think that once again, I really want to play Returnal. I really.
Oh, it's so good.
How
It's
do
so
you feel
good.
about shipping me your PS5 for a week?
Oh, right. Yeah, you can borrow that.
Well, actually, you said it took you a year to beat, so maybe you wouldn't want to do that because then I'd
It's
be holding on to
hard.
that thing for a while.
That game's so hard. I do think I have this problem with a lot of games that approach this, and I think they did an incredible job of not making me feel like they're instead of me prefacing it. I think a lot of times when games talk about mental health, they do it in a way that is villainizing or not really understanding that there's a spectrum that can be dealt with within mental health, and like not everybody's situations are the same. And I think the mental health struggles that they put Celine through feel earned and not like just tacked on, and they don't feel insulting. She is a character who's definitely dealing with some serious mental health issues, and I think the plot definitely sells why she would be at this point in her life. So effective once again, not to use the same word over and over again, but yeah.
Solid. Okay, there's our top 5. We're gonna go. Well, unless you feel now that you're looking at it that there's any last second. Okay.
Beautiful.
So here's our top 5 best characters of the year: the Stout / PO3 from Inscription, Colt and Juliana from Deathloop, Heisenberg from Resident Evil, and Celine from Returnal. Okay, we're going to shoot to one last ad break here, and then we'll come back and crush it. Dante, as usual, we're taking forever to go through this, but this is the culmination of the year. We've played so many. We've played like collectively probably like what 50, 60 games this year. Like, that's
it's
a
definitely
lot of
a
content
lot
to go through. So
they earned it too. They're good games. They deserve the time.
They did. That's why we're here. So we're going to take one last break, and then we will come back and crush these best levels, and then close out this part 1 of our Game of the Year discussion. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break too, so I'll be back in 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm going to get some water. Hello.
He's back.
So
Ready
I'm
to go?
thinking, I'm thinking we may need to do the top 10 tomorrow.
That's
If
okay.
that's okay with you.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're already in hour
I
3.
know. It's insane. Okay, you ready to go?
1 second. Yes.
And we are back. We have our last category of the day. We are going to be talking about the best levels. To me, this is maybe the category I'm most excited for. I love talking about levels. I love talking about level design, and there's been some amazing levels this year. So I'm very, very excited about this category.
Absolutely.
Let's start it off with the masterclass in level design, which for me is Arcane, and their beautiful game of Deathloop here. I'm gonna put all 4 of the levels in the game on
Okay,
this list,
fair.
and we
I
can
put
talk
one.
about
I put one
them more
specific
later.
one.
Yeah.
So
that's gonna be Updom, which is kind of the first area you discover, and then Freestad Rock, the Complex, and then Carl's Bay. So, and then there's kind of an introductory, like short little tutorial level. I don't think that's quite on there.
No.
If you could replay
There's also
it, maybe,
a post
but,
area.
right?
That I
True, a little area, but I think all 4 of these levels are amazing in their own right. I have a personal favorite, but I really think that
Same.
3 of these levels are up there for me as like some of the best that Arcane has done, and that's saying something because Dishonored and Prey like have done just some amazing levels that I could not praise enough. So Deathloop definitely went above and beyond. And I mean, they had to, right? Because you're gonna be playing these levels over and over again. They had to, and they achieved some amazing level design here.
Never feel like, despite the fact that these are levels that you're going through over and over and over again, they never feel like they stagnate or that you found everything. Like there's these perfect, like clockwork style environments that change throughout the day incredibly and drastically, and just by adding more characters or creating different environmental effects, like, or just like you said, there's different like carnival style things going on in some of the levels later. Like it does such a good job of making these 4 distinct levels feel like something new every single time you encounter them. They're like best characters in their own right, almost.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about individually, like where we are in terms of the ranking. But why don't you shout out another game here that we can start building this list up?
Yeah. So just because I can't stop talking about Returnal, let's get it out of the way here. There are 2 distinct areas that I think are really, really effective. Well, 3 actually. So the first one I mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's the house.
The house. Okay.
So you go through this game and you're playing through in this 3rd-person perspective, and you're running through and dodging all types of bullet hell style stuff. And then every once in a while, the game slows its pace down drastically, and you enter this home. You get the keys to it, the lights on, so the door's unlocked. Maybe there's different things that let you know that, okay, I'm able to go back into the house. And anytime you do, it's like, it feels like there's a rock in your stomach because it's just so unsettling and dark and scary, and unlike anything else going on in the game. The house is a really, really good change of pace for that game when you're in the middle of so much hectic, crazy violence that it slows it down, and it's just like, all right, time to get spooked for a hot second. Another Returnal space that I really think is cool is the first biome, because that's the best way I can explain them. Like it's going to be like the first biome, and then there's another one called the water biome. Like they don't have real names as far as I know. But the first biome, you crash land your ship there, and it is this this kind of wild alien architecture everywhere, and you're kind of proceeding through that, and it's very unsettling. But then some story content happens, and then you come back to this first biome, and it's totally overgrown, and it just really gives you a nice perspective of how different things in this game can change depending on what's happened in the story. It changes drastically. They're both absolutely gorgeous, but like especially that second time you're in biome 1, it is just this like beautiful place to be, where there's all these like alien style eggs that have grown everywhere, and there's like foliage, and it's it does a really cool job of giving you a lot of like organic material to like
Okay.
experience as well that you weren't getting the first time through. Very cool. And
Nice.
then the last one from Returnal is the water biome, which is the last biome you go to. You just plunge into the depths and you jump in the water and you just sink down super, super far, and you end up in this like ocean, and it is it feels literally like you're walking at the bottom of an ocean that has been like taken over Atlantis or something like that. So there's like
Wow.
all of this architecture underwater. Your jump height gets a little bit higher, but that's about it.
Yeah.
It's not like uncomfortable to be in this water biome
Yeah.
necessarily, which is nice. Like shouting out a water level is one of the best levels. Is like it seems like a red flag for sure, but like it's actually a good water level. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, it's just it's really crazy because now you're underwater. Enemies feel like they can come from 360 degrees almost, which is terrifying. But it's beautiful. There's all types of like I don't know, just stuff to make you really, really feel like you are under an ocean, which has some metaphors as well alongside the story, to like handle her, talking about her like the level of depression she's at essentially.
Right.
Really, really cool level.
Nice. Amazing. The next game I want to shout out is to me it's like Arcane's up there making the best levels, just on average, and then up there for me is IO Interactive making these Hitman games. All of these levels are interesting in some way. I think I played through all of the Hitman levels this year. I went on a huge Hitman binge, and Hitman 3's levels are some of the best. I think I maybe like per level Hitman 2 I might like those a bit more, but there's also just more quantity, whereas Hitman 3 unfortunately only has like 5.5 levels. There's like kind of a last one that's more of a story one, but it's not truly a Hitman level for what Hitman is there for. But the ones I don't know if I'll shout out. I guess I'll shout them all out that I want to talk about. But there's kind of one that I want to fight for. But the one I'm showing on the YouTube background now is Mendoza. So this one's set in the kind of Argentina mountains. And as you can kind of see, it's like a winery. So down on the first level is kind of the production level, which of course leads to a bunch of fun kill opportunities where you can like push someone into a grape crusher, and drown someone in like just a vat of wine and stuff like that. Like just really over the top stuff. And then there's kind of these flowery fields. There's kind of the top floor that's kind of just this really beautiful restaurant, like dance area. And then there's kind of that house up on the hill, which is, I always love going through a house portion in like a Hitman game. And so, of course, this one kind of has that, which is where one of your targets is. So it's kind of like the fortress as well. So definitely this one's like my favorite in the game and one of my favorite in the whole trilogy. The other ones that I will shout out is I tried typing on my overlay there, but let's type.
Oh, nice.
The other one is Dartmoor Manor, which I feel like this is the one that most people were kind of raving about. And this is like the it's just giant mansion in England, and in this level you're kind of doing a murder mystery, or you don't have to, but as with Hitman you can do these levels however you want. And this one you can kind of do this murder mystery, which is really fun to uncover and learn about all these characters and go through looking for evidence and stuff like that. So that's like a fun mini game you can do like in this level, but then also just as a Hitman level, it's great, well designed. I'm going to shout out the China level, Chongqing, which just Google this level. I think this is how you spell it. But just look that one up because it's like, it's nighttime, it's raining, kind of neon signs going everywhere. I think maybe this one is a bit lower for me because visually it's amazing, but it looked
snap.
Yeah,
it
looked so
gorgeous.
much bigger when I first entered the level than it actually is. It's actually pretty small, and then there's more stuff like underground, but I just like wanted to keep going down the streets and going to these little shops and like little like corner restaurants and stuff like this. But
all the neon is so good.
Beautifully beautiful level. And then I'll shout out the Berlin level as well, which is like this underground. It's like a really interesting level because you start out like just out on this freeway and you're kind of left there on your own. There's a little gas station. Seems like a really small area, but then you go down this long hill and then you end up at this like underground kind of hidden, like it's like very industrial area, but then it's also this underground nightclub that's like bumping, and there's like a bunch of other stuff around the edges too. Like just so much going on in this one level.
The best part of these games in general, right? They're just like these just deep, deep sandboxes. Like there's so much more there than you can realize in one playthrough.
Mm-hmm. It's unreal. I just love what IO Interactive's doing. I can't wait to see what new levels they have coming out next year. Like I said, if we do this again next year, best levels, I'm sure I'll be talking about the Hitman levels again, the new ones that come out. Yeah, Mendoza is my favorite of the bunch here. There's also, I didn't talk about the first level, which takes place in that skyscraper in Dubai. It's also beautiful. I think gameplay-wise, it wasn't quite on the level as these ones for me, so I showed these ones instead. But they don't make... Okay, there's an exception. I was going to say they don't make bad levels. There's one bad level in Hitman 1. But other than that, they make just stellar levels that I can't wait to play over and over and over again.
I've heard some mixed things about the train at the end of Hitman 3.
Yeah, I don't like that. It's a real letdown, especially because it's like shrouded in mystery on the menu, and then like it like built up my thoughts of what this final level is going to be, and then when it was just like this very linear train level, I was kind of bummed. It's good story wise.
For story purposes, right?
But yeah, I will say like so Mendoza, the one on screen, I was like the last level before that, and I feel like as a finale, it really is a great finale, and unfortunately it didn't frame it that way, so I was a bit let down. But I don't like that's the thing. I don't even consider that a Hitman level. That's why I said there's 5 levels in this game, and rather than 6 on the menu, because that really is not a Hitman level. It's like a little story epilogue. So maybe they should have advertised that more. But also, you don't want to advertise like, "Hey, this level's not that good." You know, like what are they going to say?
Yeah.
So
yeah, they did though. They were like the mysterious final level, and they were like, "Walk forward on the train."
Yeah, kind of a bummer. But the rest of these levels are absolutely amazing.
More than make up for it. It sounds like.
I'll be fighting for one of them. So what's your next game on the list?
So Ratchet and Clank, there is a particular level that I think stands out amongst the other ones, and it's called Savali. It's Savali. And it is this just open area. Like you're in these very like tight zones throughout, and then they just like, all right, now you're in Savali. You get these like thruster boots that let you like dash and dart around the entire map, like literally glide throughout the entire map, and you hit these like ramps and stuff like that, and you can like do flips all over through the air and use your tether that's in that game to like pull you forward through these different portals, and it's just like really gorgeous opportunity to like get a sense of speed in this game that is already absolutely beautiful. There's all types of like speed challenges throughout that, and once again like dashing off of all of these big ramps and stuff like that to hit like higher points in this world. It just feels like an opportunity to give more exploration and like a small open world feel to a game that is mostly level based. Savali just like stands out. It is the level that I wanted to be in most of the game. Anytime I had an opportunity to go back, I was really stoked because I was like, all right, I get to use my booster jets again and just like thrust all over the place and just feel fast as hell. It feels like the one level where you get to use all of Ratchet's toolkit to the best effect. Like it feels like it showcases the game better than any other place in that game.
Nice. It's amazing. That's your one Ratchet and Clank shout out?
Yeah, just one. I feel like it was the standout in that game. But there's incredible levels throughout. Like almost everyone is like its own perfect little zone. But Savali stood out.
Cool. I want to talk a little bit about Back 4 Blood here. So Back 4 Blood is one of the games that me and Dante played together this year. We played through the whole thing.
Yep.
And it's interesting because when we like as soon as we finished or like while we were playing, I'm like, man, I love this game so much, and like this is gonna be high on my top 10. And spoiler, it's not on my top 10 anymore. But like
me neither.
We still were pushed to go through the whole thing, and it's not. Yeah, it's pretty long, and it's fucking hard at times. We had to play some levels like 4 or 5 times. It's really really challenging game, but I really like the game, and I think if they do DLC, I would be happy to jump back in with you and play through some more of these levels.
Likewise. I think there's a standout. There's a couple actually for me.
What are yours?
But start yours. Start yours.
So the one I wrote down 4 here. So I'll start with this one the level's called T5, and this is the level where essentially you're just defending that mansion. And there's like the fountain out front, and it's a very like short level in terms of like, I mean, you're pretty much it's like a horde mode. You're defending.
Yeah, we did that one like 4 times, so we spent more time there than most of the levels.
Exactly. This was the hardest level in the game for sure. for us, and I think when we finally finished it, I was so happy, and not because like,
Yeah,
oh, what a slog, I'm happy to get through that. It was like we finally
we
came up with a
figured it out.
strategy, because like
Yeah,
you really needed to strategize that map. We tried so
yep,
many different things, like, okay, everyone's upstairs, like no one deviate from the plan, and inevitably someone always would, and then it's like, okay, we got to go down to the basement and get stuff though, so like we should all do that at once, and like, someone can stay outside and distract them. Like we tried so many different strategies, and eventually we were able to beat it, and it was so satisfying.
super.
And I loved it. I think it was, yeah, such a great like horde mode designed level.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Why don't we go back and forth on these then? Since
Sure,
you have
sure.
5, I bet you both of my 2 are on your
Okay.
5. So the second one and my main one was the bar. I think that
Yeah.
is such a fun little break amongst that game, and like has some just like really hilarious moments. Like, so essentially you make your way to this bar, and then you're eventually hunkering down in this bar and setting up to defend it, and you are trying to distract the zombies in the area so that the person who's picking you up in the car to end the level essentially can get there in time. And the way that you do that is to keep this jukebox running.
Yeah.
And the really cool part about that's another level we did multiple times.
Mhm.
Pretty high profile songs being played,
Yeah.
and it's a different song every time. Like, I was
Right.
like blown away that I was like, oh my god, these are like this is licensed music, and there's not a lot of licensed music in this game.
Yeah.
And they just shoved all 5 like licensed songs, or like however many they got, into this one
Yeah.
jukebox. So you end up with like, I'm pretty sure they play like Ace of Spades by like Motorhead, and like all just stuff like that, like Dive Bar, like kind of 80s metal
Yeah.
music, right? And yeah, you're just like hunkered down trying to defend this thing. The jukebox will break. Somebody has to run and make sure that the jukebox is going again, while you have all these special monsters or special zombies coming in and like really just ruining your whole day. You have to set up like barricades inside and out. Really take good use of the Molotov cocktails that are on the wall behind you, because you're in a bar, so there's plenty of alcohol. So there's like almost infinite Molotov cocktails behind the bar, which is pretty fun. So you're just like setting up these giant spaces that are just like covered in fire the entire fight. It's hectic. It's literally 4 people and about 100 zombies trapped in this little tiny bar, and just has like such a fun moment.
Yeah, that was on my list as well. I just love, I love how small the bar is, right? So it's like, it's to the point where everyone feels like, okay, I should probably cover 2 entrances, but then yours just gets so overgrown, and then there's like zombie, someone else messes up, and then they flood in through that door, and there's just enough doors that not everyone can cover just one entrance, so it just inevitably gets chaotic. And when one of the big guys gets inside, it's like, oh shit, like, and then
everybody get away from your door and take this dude out. He is causing problems.
Yeah, and then more problems inevitably. Yeah, it's a great level. I really like that one as well. And then it's cheesy, obviously, that it's like, okay, you gotta get this jukebox running, but like that ends up being such a fun motivator as well, because that's like in the main room where it's like the most open as well, so it's really hard to defend that area. And yeah, great level.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next one that I will shout out is it's called Abandoned, and this is the one. This is actually a pretty long level. So essentially, it starts out, and I think you're like exiting like a subway station, and then you go up, and then there's like a little town area where you're having to go in through the basement and like get rid of those. I don't know what they'd be called.
Those wall hugger things.
Yeah, those wall hugger things. And then eventually you break through that, and then you go up through a mine, and then the mine is a really hard area.
Yeah.
And then you keep going. This is a super long level.
It is long,
and then you end up in like this, on the other side of this mine, it's like a quarry, and you have to set up these like howitzer like bomb things, like these little like turrets, I guess. So you have to like shoot these shoot these bombs to like blow an entrance into would be the entrance to the next area. So yeah, super long level, really difficult. But I think to me it was like one of the most standouts for like kind of being a I guess like an endurance test in a way.
Absolutely.
It's just hard to like, I don't know, keep your focus that whole time, or like work together as a team that whole time, because like at some point someone will go off because they see some item, and then they get caught behind, and then if you have to fight through that mine and you're the only person alive, like that's really hard to do. So
yeah, it's terrifying.
To me, that was a really solid level.
That is a standout for sure. And what I forgot, strangely, the second you started talking about it, I thought that was like 4 different levels, and it's like, oh no, that was just one really long level. The other one I have, and maybe this is an addition, because you haven't named it yet, is called The Crossing.
Yeah, I had that one on my list too.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That was your other one. I thought that this would be my two were definitely on your list. And I'm happy they were.
Yeah.
So The Crossing is really neat as well, and it's one of the earlier levels. So it's like it's near the end of Act 1, and really, I don't know. I think it just sets a stage better than a lot of the other maps in that game. So you start off in your safe room, and you end up working your way towards this bridge. And after you finally get through the encounter where you get to go across the bridge, you realize the bridge is completely collapsed and destroyed. And there's a bunch of monsters chasing or zombies chasing you. So like everybody's like, just go, get across the bridge. So it's one of those moments where you just have to book it. And it's like, you have that like no man left behind feeling. So like you guys are all just running, and of course somebody gets like caught up with something, and then everybody has to decide whether or not they need to go back for him or not, which is necessary in the next piece, because after crossing that boat or crossing the bridge, you get to a boat. It's this like big cruise liner. And your goal is to blow the cruise ship up. I don't remember why.
Yeah, I guess just like there's zombies that are going to be on it at
yeah,
the time.
it just blocks. Yeah, it just blocks off their path to you, I
Yeah.
guess, or something. But
Yeah.
you get on this cruise ship, and there's it seems to be a few different ways to take care of that, but it seems like there's one way that just worked out for us, which was splitting up. So we would have two people guarding the goal, essentially, which has its own turret and a bunch of resources, and then you have two people who are going in the ship and setting bombs. So it's one of those ones where you really have to communicate with your team. You have to like, each person gets in the ship and they independently should be setting up their own bomb. And the people outside should be doing enough damage out there to make it so that the zombies aren't attracted to those people who are kind of doing this the suicide mission, it feels like.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then, at that moment when both bombs are planted, both people just rushing up to get to the top of the ship again. And then you see how hectic things have gotten up top, and there's just hundreds of zombies on the top of the ship, and you're trying to like barrel your way through and start communicating again with the team that's been separated from you, defending you. It's just like one of the best examples of how strong the teamwork needs to be in that game to succeed. I thought it did such a good job of that, and it's a good one to have early on in the game, because I think it really cements your teamwork, right? Like if you don't learn it there, you're really going to struggle later.
Right. Yeah, I think it's like the closer for Act 1 or something. And it feels like that too, because after you do that, obviously the scene when you finally all run off the boat and then it blows up is pretty cool. So, and that one as well. It took us like 3 or 4 tries, and once again, like it's fun to think like, okay, what did we do wrong? Like, how should we reinvent our strategy and try something different? And as you mentioned, like that strategy we came up with seems kind of counterintuitive. Like, oh, this 2 guys are going to go off on their own. Like that cannot work. But like, if you plan it correctly, it ended up working, and that was really fun.
It felt like the right way. It felt like, wow, this is what is intended, but I'm sure there's a million different ways to do it.
Yeah. I like that 2 of those we both had on our list. I think that's a sign that maybe we should pick one of those. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Those were my Back for Blood shoutouts. I think there are some other good ones in there. There's a couple.
There's a lot of levels. It's a long game.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
I think it was a lot of fun, and I think the card system, while like kind of cheesy and like kind of weird, ended up actually being like fun. It's fun to like make a really OP character. I like the game, and I definitely want to go back when there's some more levels to play.
Absolutely. Maybe more cards.
We just played on like the default difficulty, and it was like
that
was
hard. There's like 2 more difficulty levels, or
crazy.
One maybe one below what we played, and then 2 more above what we played. Like, that game is tough.
It's fun to have Left 4 Dead back.
It was about damn time, and now we got like 8 different Left 4 Dead games came out this year or something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't play any but Back 4 Blood.
Yeah. What's your next game?
So I'll shout out one that has a singular level that I thought was really worth shouting out, and I'm sure you will add to that. So this is a very, very brief moment in an Inscription at the very end. So spoilers, but this had me like screaming essentially in my chair. I was like, you cannot do this. This is hilarious. And there is a moment near the end when like literally in the end of the game, and they're kind of like cycling through some levels essentially that maybe the different what are they called? The different
Right. I
like
mean, like
bestow and
we could just call them like the visionaries, like
yeah,
the inscription
yeah.
visionaries. Like
Essentially,
we'll just
they're the
steal that from
inscriptions
them.
visionaries. Yeah. So essentially, the mages is my absolute favorite moment
Yeah.
in that game because I
Just
am
Yu-Gi-Oh! Like
yeah, I am essentially of that generation where Yu-Gi-Oh was impactful for me. So to see you rise up on the game is 3D for really the first time throughout the entire game. So that was pretty like a stark change where you're like, holy crap, like this 2D or pseudo 3D game is just like fully 3D now. And all of your monsters have these 3D sprite versions of themselves, or not even sprites, like polygonal versions of themselves, which is cool. So you actually get to see your cards like fight. And you
it's
rise up
crazy
on
how
these
much
pillars.
work they put into this one super short sequence.
It's one fight. It's one fight, and then they completely move on from it. But the best part is you rise up on these two pillars, just like in Yu-Gi-Oh! You're above the plane that your monsters are fighting on, and they give you a straight up dual disc from Yu-Gi-Oh! And you're playing on the dual disc. And I just thought, I was like, I cannot believe you did this. I cannot believe you did this. This is just absolutely ridiculous. It completely subverts every single thing that has come before it. It is in the middle of the climax, which is like feels hectic and fast paced almost. So you move through that space super quickly. And it like, I honestly was just like, man, I wish I could have a whole game of this. It's just an absolutely hilarious moment. In a game that has tons of incredible moments.
Yeah.
Literally, like every single time it subverts your expectations. It's one of the best parts of the game. And that was like one of the last hurrahs, I think. So yeah, it was.
So should I put like Magnificus's game? Like, you're talking specifically about that one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the whole ending is like amazing. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great. I love that. I also am a big Yu-Gi-Oh guy, so that was
cool.
That was pretty awesome for me too.
Yeah, I was screaming.
Yeah. Let's see. Next, here's a smaller game. I'm gonna shout out Knockout City. Did you check out Knockout City this year? It's the dodgeball.
That's a dodgeball game. No, I watched a bunch of people stream that game this year. A buddy of mine was streaming it a bunch, so I watched him play it quite a bit. And that game looks fun. It looks really, really fun.
It was super fun. I feel like I only really played it for a weekend, and then I kind of never came back. I don't know why. I think it's because like maybe my friends didn't push me to go back in there, but. Right. I thought it like mechanically just really surprised me how good it was. Really fun, some creative levels. So I'm going to shout out Rooftop Rumble, which is one of the levels that just, as it sounds like, takes place on top of a rooftop. But I think design-wise it's interesting because there's kind of like two major buildings that each team, essentially like one is each team's home base, and they're not symmetrical, like they each have their own kind of quirks to them. And then there's kind of like a bridge that goes between them, and that's like the danger zone of the map is like everyone, if you have control of the bridge, you're going to win the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's some great level. There's like one that's like a kind of silly, I don't know, restaurant. It's like this spinning restaurant. It's like a Lazy Susan giant restaurant. There's some City Streets one. There's some fun levels in there, but I think Rooftop Rumble stood out to me, and this is kind of where I wanted to shout out Knockout City because it was a really fun game, and I would definitely play it again. If anyone was like, "Hey Dylan, do you want to play Knockout City?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm in."
Absolutely.
Like I haven't like put the effort in to push some friends to play it, but who knows? Dante, we should go play some.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I was interested for sure, so I'm in.
All right.
Whenever we're ready. So this is one I kind of ripped on a little bit earlier, but I still think it is like incredible to be in and super, super fun as like a sandbox. And that is Zeta Halo from Halo. That campaign is so damn good. It's so good. Not to spoil anything, but like,
honestly, you can spoil story stuff if you feel the need to.
I'm just like it's the story I frankly don't care much about. It has a lot to do with just like how incredibly fun that world is to be in. Like they did a thing with Halo that they made it almost feel like I had as many choices as I did when I was playing like Breath of the Wild. Like the tools they give you and how they upgrade those tools and how they place enemies in that map and how good the AI is just make you feel like you have to use your entire toolkit constantly and you're grappling all over the place and like just flying through the air. Like you're doing like it have you ever played any of the Just Cause games?
No, I haven't.
Okay, no worries. The Just Cause games are the last time I felt this feeling in a game where you like see a helicopter and you grapple up to the flying thing, and then you kick the guy out of the helicopter, and then you're flying the helicopter, and then you ram the helicopter into like a gigantic like exploding pylon, and you jump out just beforehand, and you're shooting rockets on your way down. Like, it just lets you do so many things at once. It's one of the better. It's probably the best first-person shooter sandbox I've ever been in. Like, and it pulls from games recently that I think have been super successful in creating very good sandboxy MMO or sandboxy just blanking on the word now.
Like a single player game, you mean? Or...
Yeah, well, yeah, like just giving you like a sandboxy single player game to work in. Like, I feel like a lot of those I've been getting pretty bored in recently. Like your Assassin's Creeds, or like honestly, like the Ubisoft
Assassin's
formula
Creed, super boring.
has lost me. Yeah, it's just that style has lost me. Just like collect the icons on the map essentially, and while you are going to the icons on this map, it feels incredible just moving throughout the map. Like, literally this giant area, and most of the game you don't have vehicles. You're still just like, you feel like Spider-Man almost with the grappling hook. It's nice. Great. And like the upgrades you get for Master Chief just make you expand your toolkit to the point that you end up using all of them by the end of the game, to just like fling yourself all over this damn map. Like, it feels like you can be anywhere and do anything. That mountain over there, you feel like you can climb it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's that experience. Amazing. But in a Halo game, it does the best job of selling the first level from Combat Evolved back to me, essentially, which is like such an impactful moment. It's like, wow, this whole area, like I get to explore this whole area, and you're not going to really like, you're going to let me go wherever I want. Like, it's that, but like fully realized.
Amazing.
Zeta Halo rocks. It's super fun. Like, I will beat that
Zeta
game.
Halo is just like the greater open world, I guess. Would you?
That is, just the Halo you're on. That is the game. Like, you were on Zeta Halo for 90% of the game.
Right. Okay.
And it is a kick-ass place to be. It's super fun. Not drastically different biomes or anything like that, but the world that they have created is super fun to be in. And pretty. It's pretty as hell.
Yeah. It is. We have it on screen. I'm going to shout out as well Bazaar, which is one of the multiplayer maps.
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't played the campaign yet, but this one was like the standout for me. I think visually it differs from the rest of them. Kind of like a desert area with, it's like a bazaar. It's like a marketplace kind of vibe. Yeah. And we played like a free-for-all with you and your friends here, which was really fun. And also works really well as a team map because it's asymmetrical but symmetrical in terms of structure. But yeah, I think it also has like just a wild amount of verticality to it. Like, some of the buildings are like 3-4 stories tall. And then they're really
there's a grappling hook in the middle of that map. They let you really fling around that place too if you want to.
It's super cool. I think that was, to me, the standout multiplayer map that I've played.
It's a good one. It's a really, really good one. It's like definitely up there for me. I feel like I have a few that I like to see cycled through, and like whenever I get that one, I'm excited about it. It's a good CTF map. It's a good free-for-all map. It's a good Team Slayer map. Like, I think the only thing I don't see in it often is Oddball. Other than that, like, it has.
Right. There's probably there'd probably be a lot of really easy places to camp. So maybe that's not the best one for that.
Yeah, they probably had thought that part out. But one of my favorite CTF maps, actually.
Yeah. Is there any other Halo maps you wanted to shout out, or are you kind of just?
No, I think that's a good one. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a desert-y one which has like almost feels like an Unreal Tournament map.
Oh, cool.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. We can add it to the list. Multiplayer levels.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more of these levels that I'm assuming they're going to add levels every so often, or even when they add Forge, and just see what people come up with. And back in the day, I used to love Forge. I used to love making maps of my own, so maybe I'll mess around with that when it's in there.
Behemoth, it's called, and it's literally just like 2 spires on either side, and then there's 2 spires in the middle. And a lot of times there are sniper rifles on that map, which is really fun. It's one of the best CTF maps in the game. There also are vehicles.
Yeah, this level is good. Yeah,
there's vehicles on that map too, which is super fun. Every once in a while, like late in the game, they start throwing flying vehicles at you, and like people will just ruin your whole day with not wraiths, not ghosts, banshees. Banshees
Right.
will like be flying around and they'll give you the grappling hook, and you can do all that stuff that I was talking about in the single player. You can like literally hijack a banshee from the ground using the grappling hook, and it's just
That's amazing.
it's such a kick-ass experience. Like it's just like, man, I'm doing the coolest thing I've ever done in a video game right now.
I'm excited to hop back into Halo. It's
so
been a
good.
couple weeks, but I'm excited to play
I've been
more.
playing a lot.
I'll jump and play some multiplayer with you someday. Here
I'm
soon.
up there now. I'm in what is it? I'm in diamond rank or platinum rank. I'm like just before Onyx, like which is the end. I've been playing so much multiplayer.
Crazy.
You were very good, so I think you're gonna get right up there quickly.
Dude. I honestly, I played like a couple days later, and it's like, man, people have already gotten so good. Like I was like already feeling a bit outclassed, and now it's been like 2 weeks without me playing. So I'll try again. But
you got that Christmas wave happening right now. There's a lot of noobs playing online. Now's your time.
Good point. Okay, next. So because I didn't know if I wanted to shout this out because it's kind of like a larger area, but since you shouted out the entire open world of Halo, I'm happy to put it on here. But
it is just one big place.
I'm gonna shout out the Stranger.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I think that counts completely.
Yeah. Just the overworld. We can just talk about that part of it. Without having to get too spoilery on things, but yeah, I mean, this is just really cool concept as like someone who's always loved Halo. The idea that you can like go around the entirety of one of these rings is really cool. Visually, it's interesting, as you mentioned, like the water and like when this wave comes through and crashes and destroys stuff. It's really interesting.
So crazy.
And then the fact that everything that is happening on the outside of it is stuff that like somehow also affects the underground layer and like the dark world is really, really cool in the way that you can affect some of those things by doing certain things. Is really fun. And just visually, it's amazing. Just looking up like as just like in amazement, but also looking up to see if you can see any like clues or where you should go. Like also the fact that
how
that's
much
like
time you have
gameplay thing is really, really cool. Yeah.
You know the dam breaks at a certain point. If you look up and you see the dam starting to break, you're like, oh, okay, I'm nearing the end of my loop. Or a really amazing part of this is whenever you are in the dark world and the dam is breaking and you're like just like trying to figure out your last thing, and then you start drowning out of nowhere because you're in this space that is now changed because like so you get pulled out of the dark world because you start to drown. Like really, really effective moments, and also moments that you're like, God damn it, I was so close. Like I was right on the verge of figuring out something like impactful, and now I got to dive right back in. It's I loved that space. I thought it was absolutely amazing to be in. So I'm
nice.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. And then I also like that from the Stranger you can see out to the rest of the solar system, and you can see just planets that, I mean, for me, I played like 2 years ago. Just it's fun to kind of see them flying around and remember the good times that I had on those planets too.
Oh, and that 10 out of 10 video game, Outer Wilds.
I know. Now it's like 2 10 out of 10s. You mix those together. What do you get? Like
it's a 20 out of 20 now. 20 out of 10. Yeah, that's not how fractions work at all. It's a 20 out of 10.
Yeah. What's your next game?
So should we just start digging into RE8? Right?
Sure.
It's a big omittance at the moment. Like, and I have multiple from RE8. So let's just start by shouting out the damn village. Like, what a cool little hub area to be in, and like go kill roosters and pigs and stuff. And that initial moment when you're in the village and you're just running through it, and you're like, man, I must be missing everything. Like, holy crap, this is terrifying. I need to just go, and like not really understanding that this is your home, and like this is where you come back to at the end of each singular level, essentially. And I think the village is so well created. It really does feel like a place that people were living in and then just had to leave out of nowhere. So there's like, seems like there's food in the middle of being cooked, and there's like fires that are recently put out, and there's smoke coming off of those fires. And like anytime you have to go into like that like field that has the
scarecrow and stuff.
The scarecrows and stuff like that, and realizing there are monsters in that field and you cannot see them at all. It's a really just great hub area in a game that has like so many amazing like particular levels situated around that. It's surprising that it's able to shine amongst those to me.
Yeah, and for me, I think I was surprised too. I haven't played tons of Resident Evil games, and so I
Mm.
didn't expect to come back to this place as like a hub area. So when
Me
that
neither.
finally
Yeah.
did happen, after we go through this massive sequence in the castle, and then like a ton of shit happens after that boss fight, you kind of crash down, and the fact that you like walk out of this cave and you're like back in this
Oh
place that
shit! I'm here again.
yeah, it's fun too because it's like it was originally this really scary place, but then it's like it's like you feel like a breath of fresh air. It's like comfort, even though it's
Yeah.
terrifying. And then yeah, you keep coming back to it, and then eventually, like, yeah, the Duke kind of has like a setup place that's really close by. So yeah, I love the village. I think
I don't think that's a
for-
common thing in Resident Evils, by the way. You said
Okay,
you hadn't
so
played a
it's like
lot
a
of them.
new thing. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then I mean we have to shout out Castle Dimitrescu, right?
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
also
That's
on
on
your
my
list?
list as well. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. And probably one of my favorite levels of the game altogether. I think it that does give you that old school Resident Evil feel for sure. Like that same feeling that you get when you're in the police station in 2, or you're in the castle in Resident Evil 1. Like it sells that part of Resident Evil to you while also just being like visually impressive as hell,
Yeah.
and giving you that menacing person to run away from the entire time. Not just Lady Dimitrescu, but like her daughters as well. The like vampire ladies that are chasing you around. The wine barrels, that the space in the basement where like there's all that flooded,
Kind of
and you don't know
flooded,
if it's like wine or blood or water or what. And there's stuff under the water too, which is like very, very menacing. There's like cool locales within the castle itself. It seems like to me, it was one of the bigger locations and one of the ones you spent the most time in.
Yeah, I think a good use of backtracking, not too much backtracking, but enough that you're getting familiar with these areas, and then it's like not super linear in the way you go through it either. So I think it was kind of a fun little puzzle mazy area to get through. So yeah, definitely big agree on that one.
Yeah, loved the castle. I shouted this one out earlier, but like House Beneviento, I thought was fucking crazy. Honestly, like that is like you lose all of your weapons. Like you have no way of doing combat in this space. Like you're just kind of walking through this very uncomfortable area that is like starts off as this like dollhouse with all of these like porcelain dolls everywhere. And like depending on what part of the mission you're in, there's more or less dolls. Like there's a period where like you went into a room that did not have that many dolls in it, and then you come back and there's dolls everywhere. And it's terrifying. Not to mention when you go into the basement.
Oh god, that basement. Holy shit. That's the scariest part of the game by far. Yeah.
I'd go that way too. There's that gigantic crazy baby just crawling around chasing you, and you're like hiding underneath beds and stuff like that. Like it really it flips the gameplay on its head there. Like it feels more like you're playing I forget the name of it, but that game where you're like using the camera. Outlast. It feels like you're in Outlast almost out of nowhere, where you're like, I have no weapons, no nothing. I'm just hiding from this thing and hoping that it doesn't see me. Very tense in a way that I think the rest of the game feels almost very action-y.
Yeah. A place that is definitely more action-y is Heisenberg's factory, and I wanted to show this one out. And so you are still
I'm here now. Yeah, so go for it. Like I'm so close. Like I'm not necessarily too worried.
I don't think I have much to spoil. Then I just think it's really the structure of it is really cool that you kind of have this hub elevator that you're coming back to, and like you keep getting back to it, and then you kind of you can use that to go and backtrack in a creative way without having to spend too much time. And it also makes it kind of maze-like in a way, and makes it hard to get through, but in a good way. I think for me, it just like stood out as being like very visually distinctive from the rest of the areas in the game. Just the moment when you walk in and you see what's in front of you and you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to go through all of that. There's like just bodies everywhere, just on conveyor belts, weird machine people, very strange area. And I just think it was maybe the best designed level in terms of just like the gameplay perspective alone. Like I really, really liked it, and I think it works well as like a final dungeon, because it's pretty intense, it's pretty long, and it just has like multiple fights in it, has a good amount of backtracking, and then you always that elevator is nice because you have the Duke there who kind of comforts you. So you kind of have that as well. So I think it's just really, really well designed. Great puzzles, great combat, great
I'm at the tail end of
visual
this, huh?
design. What's that?
I said I'm at the tail end of this, huh? You said it's the
I
last dungeon. Like I must be at the very end of this game.
Well, yeah, I mean, the game doesn't end in the factory. There's more
Okay.
after it.
Yeah.
But that's like that. This is your. I would consider it the final dungeon, I guess.
Interesting. Good to know. Good to know. I need to hop back in that like immediately.
Yeah. Apologies for the minor spoilers on that, but
that's not much at all. That's not much at all.
I also, like I mentioned earlier, that Stronghold, that just reminded me, like, I want a Lord of the Rings game that looks as good as this in that area, because you're fighting orcs in like this crazy decrepit castle. Like, it's really fun. I won't put it on here, but just an audio shout out to it. Is there any other?
We almost named every level in Resident Evil.
We pretty much did. Yeah, we didn't mention the swamp.
The swamp.
Which,
it's cool.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It looks cool, but I think gameplay wise, not my favorite.
No, yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
No, I think these are the ones from Resident Evil for sure. That might be my list as well.
That's the end of your list? Okay.
Yeah.
I have not too much more here. I'm going to shout out, I'm not going to put this on the list, but I'm just going to say Unpacking. There's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 levels or something. I love every single one of them. Each one of them has like an interesting story perspective. They get more and more complex. I love every level equally. I don't know how I'd pick one. That's why I'm like struggling to like just throw one and fight for it, because I think I love all of them completely equally.
Nice.
It's just such a unified game that doesn't have a slow moment, doesn't have a bad level. Everything is just equally amazing. So shoutouts to Unpacking. What else do I want to shout out? I don't. Are you a Pokemon guy at all? Do you play Pokemon?
Yeah, I love Pokemon actually.
Okay.
I just didn't touch like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, right?
Yeah, me neither. I'm like
I played those games.
I was like, I loved Pokemon as a kid, and I just didn't really grow up with it after that. I kind of moved on. But I did kind of have a bit of a Pokemon bender this year, and I picked up new Pokemon Snap. And I ended up having a lot of fun with it.
That came out this year. I totally forgot that game existed.
Yeah, and I was like so hyped on it that I like picked up Shield, and I started playing through that, and then the MOBA Pokemon Unite came out this year as well. And that was free, so I checked that out. Couple games, but I really liked Pokemon Snap. I haven't played the original, and I want to go back and play it. But
original's fun.
Yeah, it's just like it's a somewhat. I feel like there's a lot of photography games now, but I still think the on rails, like Jungle Cruise kind of vibe of it is fun. So there's a few levels I'd shout out. I don't think I'm gonna fight for them, but just like the nature park is kind of the first one you're in, and then the jungle. I guess the reason I'm showing these out is because like they all start out and you're doing like one track, but then you go back, you uncover shortcuts that are fun, or you come back at night and then things are different.
Yep.
Just
it
really
sounds
cool.
Very similar to the original Pokemon Snap, which is also like a blast. There's a reason they brought those mechanics back after a few decades. It's because they worked and they were fun.
Like the story and characters are awful and just not interesting at all. And like I would have preferred if they just deleted that part out so I could just play the levels, because I don't need any of that extra crap. But I had a lot of fun with the game. They even had a couple like DLC levels that came out in the summer, and I went back and played those easily. Just fun, easy Nintendo times. And so shout outs to that. Is there any other levels that I want to shout out? Okay, a couple more. So one, I'll just mention this one without putting it on the list, but the Ascent as well we talked about it. I feel like we said everything we needed to say about the Ascent, but I think the main hub area where it has like a lot of markets, it's called High Street. Just visually really cool, and then the way it kind of fans out into these surrounding areas, and that's kind of, I think there's multiple hubs in the game as far as I've played, but
I haven't seen that far then.
But it seems like there's maybe different little city areas where you have like vendors and whatnot. But anyway, this High Street everything kind of fans off from it, at least as far as I've played, and visually really cool. Gameplay wise, cool. I like the verticality of it. The fact that they packed so much into a game that you can't move the camera around, like it's just only one view, but they like made everything look so cool. So shout outs to that. And then the last thing I'm going to shout out is Metroid Dread. I'm going to shout out one area. I think after a while it becomes difficult to
look at it.
Tell.
I don't remember any of the names.
But this one you'd probably remember because this is like the overgrown area, the nature area with you know, the kind of massive palm fronds and all this overgrowth. And I think this
Yep.
is cool too, because like the first time you come here, there's like these like deer creatures that run away, and it just makes it feel like more of a living, breathing place. And a lot of the like even one of like the platforming sequences of it is like this weird tongue creature that once you land on it, like pulls its tongue back in. So it's cool that the level design, the platforming parts incorporate this kind of living nature of the area.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of great sections in Metro Dread, and I love the game so much that even after I beat it, I went
So
back
good.
and got all the collectibles, which only took another hour or two, but I was just enjoying exploring the world so much. But I think, yeah, if I had to shout out one area, it'd be that one, as just visually distinctive from the other areas, and then also gameplay-wise, really fun as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that one's a standout. Some of the fights in that area also are super, super fun. And some of the more difficult ones, I'm remembering the bosses in that level being like, specifically like the crab monster that you're like in this, stuck in this small area, and it just keeps kind of getting bigger and bigger. Like, and then you end up fighting the like really large mom version of them. One of my favorite fights, because I actually learned that you could slide under it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like
that
mechanically
mini boss was difficult for me. Yeah, it took a while to like, figure out the all the ins and outs.
But it was a perfect one leading up to later parts of the game, because you need to use all of that stuff in the final fights. Whereas like there were mechanics that I didn't even understand until that fight. So I was like, that's pretty cool. The game's dense, like way more dense than a lot of the other Metroid games.
And I think that's my list of levels. Maybe
it's
there's
a good long one
I could shout out, but I'm pretty happy with. Yeah, we have a lot on here, so let's work on dwindling this down to a top 5. For me, I mean, we got to put a Deathloop level. So which one is your favorite? Because when I did the review with Kirkland from the podcast, my favorite was Updom, and he picked his as Freestad Rock. So I think, you know, I think there's even a case for Carl's Bay. I think the complex is maybe a bit lesser than the other ones. But those three, I think you could make a case. So which one is your favorite if you had to pick one?
Updom was mine too.
Well,
I think it is. We'll make this one real easy. I think it is really, really cool because you have Charlie's part in the beginning. So you have that cool like D&D inspired alien thing going on that he has, and then later on that's where the party is, and I think the party is such a cool moment. So I think there's just the most going on at that one, and it's also just the first place you
I think
really get your feet wet.
I think that's why I put it there, because it's kind of the bookend, right? It's your first area where you're discovering what the hell this game is about, and then it's like the big conclusion at the end, and then obviously there's tons of story stuff throughout. And then like it just, the way you unlock like certain entrances and you find little hidden stories within the world. I think the verticality of it, like you can, at the start I was kind of crawling around like a rat, like on the ground level, and then eventually I'm like flying around on the rooftop when I can teleport and stuff like that. And then the library as just like this intense like stronghold right in the middle of the level is really sweet. I like Otto's like firework house.
Colt's apartments in there too. Like there's a lot of, there's more lore there than anywhere else probably.
So I'm glad that that's your favorite, because then that makes the decision easy. But no, like it should not be understated how much I love Freestad Rock as just like the visual style from like this casino gambling house, like musicians paradise, to just like these military bunkers. It's like really just variety. And then I think Carl's Bay for me is where I had the best like battles with Juliana, so I definitely want to shout that out as well. Like just battling along the rooftops there was so much fun, and I had like some of the most intense battles there as well. So and then I love the complex as well. The complex is a great level. If we're comparing it to the rest of this list, I'd say the complex is better than like probably half of these levels at least. Like that's just how good Arcane is at making.
Like honestly, these Deathloop levels could be 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the end of the day. But I feel like that would be just doing the rest of these games a little bit of a disservice. But they are all incredible. It's like pick your child.
Speaking of picking your child, I don't know if that's
your favorite child. Pick your favorite child. That's what I meant to say.
I'm guessing once again that you really want to see Returnal on here.
Actually less so than some of these other games. Like I think Returnal has had its place, and I think Returnal is sick. But like the house, as cool as it is, like I said, it feels like PT. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily anything super different. It's just different in that in that scenario.
Is there a lock then? Is there one that you're like, I need to see that on the top 5?
the Deathloop ones are just so goddamn good
Yeah.
that it's kind of hard. Like I do
I
feel
could
like
be.
I'm like, oh,
I would put a second one on there.
Magnificus, the game
Okay.
from Magnificus from Inscription. I think just like I said, I was screaming. Like I had never
Yeah.
been like I don't think I've been more vocal during a game this entire year until I saw those dual discs come
Yeah.
out. It was just amazing. And then honestly, that whole segment is
Yeah. It's
stellar.
unreal.
Like if that can be even opened up to that entire ending moment, like holy crap, is it impressive. And the amount of like it almost feeling like it is doing something to your computer throughout. It's actually deleting files off of your actual computer is like amazing. It's amazing. So I would go for Magnificus's game for sure.
I would love to see the Stranger from Outer Wilds on this list. How do you feel about that?
I love it. You know how I feel about this in general. I think we talked about this at length outside of the podcast. I was like, does it count? It's DLC, right? Even though it's like one of my favorite things I've played all year too. But then again, like I talked about Endwalker already, so we've opened that door. The Stranger is clearly one of the best things on this list.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's obviously it's within the structure of the main game, but to me, it's like as much content as, like it took me about the same amount of time as the main game did, and I think it is distinct enough. And to me, it really feels like like just a prequel, and I feel like they are underselling it by calling it DLC. So I don't and like
and hiding it so well in that game.
Yeah,
that was one of my biggest parts too. It's like, man, it's hard to find it. Even if you purchase the DLC, you're just like, oh snap, how do I even get here?
Well, dude, I was worried because when I booted up the game, and like it has like a little text line to tell you where to go if you just got the DLC, and I like went there and I like couldn't figure it out. I like opened up a guide. I'm like, what? I don't like this. I don't know if I'm gonna love this if I'm already at a guide. But then after I found the Stranger, everything else, like I never needed a guide after that, and figuring things out felt just as good, if not better, than the main game, because I think I figured out after that annoying first part. I think I figured out more than I did in the main game by myself, and so I think that felt really good when I clicked everything together. But in terms of the level of the Stranger itself,
it's
just unreal. So
it is totally. It's visually amazing. It's got so many little like clockwork pieces working throughout. It's got like sections within itself too. It's got its own levels within itself, like
things that were not locked away, but you just didn't see them because you didn't quite look hard enough, and then you get some clue as to where to go, and it's like, man, that was there the whole time. That could have been the first clue I found if I just looked in this one corner under this rock.
They do an incredible job of giving you these like little carrots on sticks and giving you these nice little clues throughout. Like it's impressive for sure.
I also really want to see a Hitman 3 level, and I know you haven't played this.
No, it sounds like that is one that you have spoken at length about, and I think if you want to put any of these on it has earned its place.
Yeah. I'm gonna put Mendoza. I think most people would put Dartmoor Manor, but for me, Mendoza is just on another level. I think it's got everything that a Hitman level has in terms of the clockwork nature of it, but just like these hidden passages underground that are like creepy and like medieval in their design, and then you can kind of go around the whole outside of the map if you want to, and then the winery. Like I feel like not enough games are set at wineries. Like, and they make such a great set piece for a level, and I've worked at a couple wineries, so I guess I'm also partial in that way. But it's just, I just love it visually. I guess I could pull it back up on screen, but I just love it visually. Gameplay wise, it was the one that I kept coming back to, and it's the one that like they add in like weekly or monthly, whatever, additional challenges or mix-ups to the level, and it's one that I'm like, when are they going to add some stuff in Mendoza? Because I can't wait to hop back into that level, and I don't know if they have. I don't know if I've seen any advertising for that. It seems like after everyone was like gawking about Dartmoor Manor that they've kind of done a bunch of stuff in there, but I'm like, man, just get me back into Mendoza. Like that is such a cool, and there's also a fun twist in the level too, where you're also supposed to be defending someone. You're supposed to make sure like a specific person stays alive, and it's a big like story. It's a character you've known for a while too, so it just it's all there. I loved this map most out of all of them, and I think for me it'd be like in the top 3 of like all of Hitman levels. Like it's really really
that's
really
exciting. That's really exciting. So I feel like we're walking into a big impasse here because we have 3 games that I would like to see get a spot. And those for me are Back 4 Blood, Halo Infinite, and Resident Evil. Right.
Okay.
I'll say my piece for Halo, and then maybe we can start talking about the other two. But I immediately feel like Zeta Halo is my favorite place I've been able to just fuck shit up in a long time. Like just and able to just like it gives you it's a perfect sandbox to utilize all the tools they've given you, and I think I couldn't ask for more from a Halo game. While I don't know that it's always so visually exciting because it doesn't change a lot, but what is there is beautiful and impressive to look at.
Maybe one argument we can use to dwindle this down a bit is like, we're talking about a whole open world, and maybe that's a bit too grandiose. Like, it's like if you're talking about your favorite Pink Floyd song and you pick like the 25-minute long song, like, is it kind of cheating in a way? Like, I got to pick Echoes, but it's also kind of cheating, you know?
Yeah, I feel that. And like there are like distinct levels you go in throughout Halo, but I don't think any of them are nearly as fun as the open world. So, if that's the case, maybe Halo gets an unfair cut because it is also and I am because the other ones are just like small condensed pieces where like I think the Zeta Halo is great because of how it lets you just utilize all the tools that are good. You know what I mean? Like, so that's saying as much about just like the game design as it is about the level. Whereas like some of these levels stand out on their own.
Yeah. So, okay, Back 4 Blood and Resident Evil. Ooh, man. We got to pick one. I mean, I don't really want to kick one of these off the top 4 that we have right now. I feel pretty
no, those are
feel
strong.
more passionate about those ones. It's tricky because I think if I were to go Resident Evil, I think I would pick Heisenberg's Factory, which you haven't played through yet. And so I don't know. I'm open to either one, I guess. But where are you leaning if you had to
my
pick?
Favorite levels from those two games are The Crossing.
Okay.
And probably House Beneviento for me.
Okay.
I just thought it was cool that they turned that level on its head and they took all your weapons away and they made you like feel actually
good point.
There's a threat where I felt like the game was kind of easy from the combat perspective. I felt like I was wrecking shit in that game. Like anytime a zombie was coming up, I was like, what do you want? Don't even walk up to me, dude. It's over. It's going to be over before it even began. Whereas like that was the first time I was like, oh fuck, I'm scared. And then they gave me a lot of reasons to be scared too. There was like deformed babies and like creepy dolls everywhere and like this house that's like all old and decrepit, and then like also this laboratory, and then on top of it there's this like autopsy station that is like got this other doll on it that seems to have like eyeballs you're pulling out of it and arms you're taking off of it and stuff like that. I don't know. I thought House Beneviento had some really, really sick moments, despite feeling fairly short.
It did seem short, and I think for me that was maybe a bit of a letdown. Is like the upstairs portion of it. I maybe wanted a bit more to do up there, but I think like that when you're doing that autopsy thing and like your view is that like that door is in front of you with the long hallway, like you're just like, man, something is gonna come down that fucking hallway. Isn't it? Like, it's terrifying.
Absolutely.
And I think even like just walking up to it too, walking up to the house, and it's kind of like it's dark and there's a lack of life here that the other places have. They don't really throw as many enemies at you here. Like they just kind of let you go through this area quietly.
Only one major enemy, right? Like
and then it like leads up to that moment, when you lose your weapons, and then it kind of starts off. I think you've maybe sold me on that one. I think Back 4 Blood, I would maybe go for T5 instead, personally. But I think I mean the Crossing is great. But I think if we're talking Back 4 Blood or Resident Evil, I think I'd want to go Resident Evil.
I agree.
Between the two.
Me too.
All right, so let's lock in House Beneviento.
Let's go.
And that's I mean, I think that's just a sign that this list had like the most amount of shoutouts on it, and is I think the hardest one to make our decision on. But I think I just love talking about levels, so I'm glad you'd like getting into the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah. Let's slap those GV gold stars on everything here. Like we locked in our nominees for the year.
Yeah. All right, so here are our best levels. Up Down from Deathloop, Magnificent's Game from Inscription. I guess we're kind of talking about the ending, but even if we just zoom in on Magnificent's Game alone, I'm okay.
Just take that,
to give it
and then if you expand it, it becomes even better.
Yeah. The Stranger from Outer Wilds, Mendoza from Hitman 3, and House Beneviento from Resident Evil Village. A great list. Dante, I thought we'd go for like maybe an hour and a half, and we're here at 4 hours. This always happens,
I
and I'm
knew it
always
was gonna
surprised
happen.
every time.
I knew the second you were like, "You want to add some topics?" I was like, "Oh boy!"
Right. I'm glad we stuck with just 4 because we were thinking boss
Yeah.
fights, we were thinking moments, we were thinking
Yeah.
DLC. But yeah, we didn't need that stuff. I think we talked about anything we would have talked about in those things like here anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this will make it easier to get through the top 10 list because I think I've brought up those games numerous times and I don't have to fight for them as much because we know
Yeah.
that I feel very strongly about Returnal.
Yeah. I'm just gonna try and pull them all up on one screen here so we can see them in a glance. But this has been so much fun. And once again, yeah, part 2, we're pretty much gonna skip honorable mentions in a way because we kind of did that here, right? And we're just gonna get right into it, talking about our top 10s. But that'll be oh my god, it's hard to keep track of everything.
There's so much.
I'm like talking and like trying to do this stuff. Okay, so there, if you're on YouTube, you can see everything at once. Those were our top 5s. I won't read them all again, but Dante, this was so much fun. We're gonna take a break. I think now we're gonna take a day's worth of a break, come back and talk about our top 10 lists. But thank you so much for joining me on this. This was a lot of fun, and yeah, we'll be back in a few days to talk about more games.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, as usual.
All right, see you later, everyone.